Tom, can you hear us? Oh, maybe. Or Rab, can you hear us? Because of Peter right here. Tom, are you sure we're on? Macy, are we on all the right audio settings? Hey, Macy, oh, okay, that's right. I was gonna say, are we on all the right audio settings over there? Tom, can you hear us? No, it's just at a better angle than the weird. All right. Yeah. Tom, can you hear us?
Hey, Tom, can you hear us? I'm like, can you hear Miranda and Macy and everybody?
I just texted you.
Tom, oh, I just did. He's saying no, but I'm wondering if it's his own setting. But I don't think Rab's there and the rest of those are us. Tom, can you hear us now?
I hear you.
You can hear us? Okay.
Yeah, I do.
Okay, great.
Can you hear me now? So folks, we're just trying to get the YouTube part to work. Oh. Okay, cool. Great. People can go to YouTube Live off of our YouTube page on the town website. Okay. Great. Great. Early adopter. Well, thanks everyone, and welcome to the June 6th BOT meeting. And got a good agenda tonight. Not too crazy, but should be fun. So let's go ahead and take the roll.
So calling to order at 7:02 and roll call for Mayor Billy,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Hold,
Here.
Trustee Mountain,
Here.
Trustee Severs,
Here.
and Trustee Sterling.
Here.
I'd like to note for the record that Trustee Corvalon is running late tonight, but she will be joining us.
Thanks, Macy. So we have a very large consent agenda this evening, and there are actually 11 items on the consent agenda. So does any of the board have any questions for Miranda?
And I will just say that you do have a few of the applicants from some of the boards and commissions present. If you wanted to allow them an opportunity to speak to why they're seeking appointment, just kind of recap that really quickly. From the DDA, you have Barb Hart and Andrew Dewar on. For ProSAP, you have Sam Ovett. For the Planning Commission, Stephanie couldn't make it. We have Linda Glasser here. And for the Sustainability, you have Rab. So just about everyone is here but Stephanie. If you want to allow them a chance to
Would love to hear from everyone.
tell you all about themselves. I don't know if you want to start in the room, but
Linda, do you need to catch your breath, or do you want to go first? All right, so Linda's catching her breath. So we're going to go with Barb, since that was the first name I heard. Barb, would you mind letting us know what you're thinking about your next few years on the NDDA?
I think that we're in a really good spot right now. I think that we have a lot of projects that we can lift up in the next couple of years. I've been on the DDA for 3.5 years now, and I'd like to finish out some of the things that we have been working on and bring some new items forward that we're going to be talking about in the next couple of months.
Thanks, Barb. I'll put it out here now. If any of the trustees have any questions for any of these folks as they talk.
I have one for Barb. Barb, what are you mentioned some of the things coming up, like what?
Well, we're starting to talk about our master plan and what we have accomplished out of it. We were supposed to have a meeting last month, but it didn't come about, but we will be soon. And we'll be able to kind of cross things off the list that have already happened. And then we'll be able to look at what the future looks like and things that might come forward. I know there's a lot of talk about Riverwalk and whether or not it will ever come about. So that's one that I'm pretty excited about, seeing whether or not it could come about. And then the performance space, we have some survey being done on that right now. like to see Big Springs wrap up. I'd like to see beautification continue. I think public art is great. I'd like to see that go in a bigger direction, hopefully down the road. So I think there are just a lot of things that are kind of just hanging in the balance that really could move forward and really make Nederland a super welcoming town to the people that are coming here from outside.
I agree. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Barb? Andrew, do you want to tell us why you or what you're thinking of when you think ahead on the NDDA?
Hey guys, Andrew Dewart here. Yeah, I think echoing kind of some of the things that Barb said. I think we as an organization are kind of beginning to gel and get a bit more functional. I think we've got some room for improvement ourselves. I'd like to kind of be a part of that, as well as the wayfinding. I think also is something I'd love to see kind of get moving forward, and the vetting out of that location for the performance space is a project that I'd like to see through, as well as Big Springs and working with town staff on projects, whether it's kind of helping with the visitor center parking lot paving projects and or other public art is another one, and then other things like the Riverwalk, and just being being of help any way I can and staying plugged into what what the business district needs and what town needs, and how to be a team player with all of that. So yeah, it's been, I feel like we had COVID, which definitely took the wind out of the sails a bit for in person, and just some staffing turnover and board changes. But I think we're kind of through that, and with the members now, feel like we have opportunity for more effective projects and development.
Thanks, Andrew. Any questions for Andrew?
I have one. Andrew, this is Nicole. I'm curious as to why you didn't actually fill out your application.
Oh, I thought it said on there, like, if for new applicants to fill out if you had not been an applicant before. I don't know if I misread that. Like, I thought it was if you hadn't already been serving on a board, if it was for new applicants.
So the application, so there's a few iterations of these applications that are floating out there in the world. And the one that Andrew did fill out does say, if a new appointment, please describe any special knowledge, abilities, or backgrounds or interests.
Okay, so only for a new appointment?
It says but it does say if a reappointment, please describe previous board experiences and contributions. That's kind of the two pieces there.
Yeah, it was just kind of a stark contrast. And so I was just curious as to why there wasn't anything filled out, because.
Okay, yeah, I misread that, and I apologize.
Okay.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, Nicole. Any other questions for Andrew?
I'll just say thanks, Andrew, for your ongoing service to the DDA, and also just to counterpoint, it would seem like you would only be more qualified after more experience, and as well as on the board and life experience. So previous application would suffice, I think.
Yeah, it was more because I was looking for the effort. Like, none of these positions should be an entitlement thing. And so it was definitely, I was looking for the effort to be put into it. So that's all.
Yeah, understood. Thank you.
This is Tanya. I just wanted to also thank Andrew for resubmitting and wanting to do some more for the DDA. You've been great working with you. It's been great.
Thanks, Tanya.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, Barb. We appreciate your stepping up and continuing on with the DDA. I think we'll go on to ProSab. Sam, you seem to have your hands full there on the screen where we can see it, but hopefully you can
I can hear you.
tell us
I've
what
got
you're thinking as you look ahead.
I've got AirPods in. I'm currently sampling the parks of Bend, Oregon. My wife's out surfing the river wave here. So I've got our little one. I did fill out an application and just, you know, essentially I came in on a shorter term and originally with ProSab. So I'd be excited to get a longer term and really get to have a good go at making the changes that everybody's excited about with parks. I think as a board with ProSab, we're putting in frameworks that are working for us, starting to, it would seem. And I'm excited about some of the unique projects like the pump track, for example. And so I'd like to see that through from a board perspective. Obviously, I'm not on the board. I'll do what I can outside of it. But I'd be delighted to continue to serve on the ProSab board in terms of making the recreation inside of Nederland very exciting for everybody. We have obviously amazing recreation outside of our city limits and town limits, but I'm excited to see what we're doing and to pursue that during this term and bring just lots of great recreation to the town as best we can during that term period. And I'm open to any questions.
Any questions for Sam?
I have one. If you were gonna have something that you're most inspired to create in the next within your next term, what would be something that you could feel really proud of?
So I think one of the biggest things that I feel like we're on track for is the pump track. So that's exciting. And then the next big one that feels like the thing that we could go after is connected trails. And then the dream one is some kind of river wave. I'm really enjoying what's going on here in Bend, Oregon right now. And it's just incredible. Like people are out and loving it and it's amazing. And so that would be pretty cool. Whether or not that's possible in our zone, we'd have to explore. But I think the big thing that we have the opportunity for is really incredibly well-connected bike trails in our community, because we just have that as such an incredible resource to where riding around town feels safe and enjoyable to different types of terrain and features, as well as just through town. And that also brings walking into the picture through town. And when I say town, I mean town and what's connected to the surrounding town, you know, our community as it is. Because technically I live up on Ridge Road, for example, and it's like we do everything in Nederland, but technically we're not in town. So connecting all of that really creates an environment that I'm excited about. So, and we're on track with that as a board too. So I think it's something we can really make happen. Lots of exciting stuff.
What was the third thing you said? River something?
Oh, river surfing wave. I'm here in Bend, Oregon, and like we've been surfing this river wave out there. My wife's out there right now, and it's just an amazing thing to see the community of people out here enjoying it. And like there's shops that have popped up around it. There's people going to restaurants all around it, enjoying the river, and it's like a real scene in the summer here, and it's been a cool thing. And I think we could potentially do that, but it's a little outside of the town of Nederland. It'd have to be a bit more of a collaboration with Boulder County, because there's an opportunity there at that footbridge that crosses the dam. Is probably the best opportunity, but that's a whole different story.
Thanks for
Yeah.
saying that again. Yeah, I didn't hear it the first time. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Any other questions for Sam? Well, thanks for being here and doing double duty with your kiddo there. So appreciate it.
Happy to. I'll mute myself because the river's kind of loud in the background.
Thank you. Just catch your breath, Linda. You want to tell us what your plan is for the Planning Commission?
Well, I'm ready to do another term on the Planning Commission. I feel it's important that there's input from a lot of the residents. I listen to everybody. I try to be very open-minded about things. I'm ready for changes in town, but I want it to be in a prosperous, well-planned way. No emotional speech tonight from me. I've learned a lot being on the planning commission. A lot of help from the staff. They always answer questions. And I think we have a really good group of people. And just listening to everybody tonight, I think it's exciting to see people involved, young, not that I'm old, but younger people getting involved in things. And it's refreshing to see that. So I think with the Planning Commission, we have a lot of tasks before us, but I think we have a positive group. Any questions?
Thanks for all your service to the town.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Well, thanks a lot. I learned a lot in the 2 years I was on the planning commission with you. I learned a lot with you, from you and the other folks there. We weren't in person hardly at all during those 2 years because of COVID, but it was great
It was tough.
that was tough.
Person.
But it was, it was encouraging to see people work together and make it work nonetheless. So
Yeah, I think there's so many good aspects to the different groups that we have in town, and there's such positive feedback. Sometimes you hear only the negative, but there is a lot of positive going on, and I think that's encouraging.
any other questions for Linda? Thanks, Linda. Appreciate you stepping, wanting to do it again, and
To do it again.
Stephanie as well.
But
Yeah,
if the NBA finals were tonight, I wouldn't.
fair enough. Thanks, Linda. So wrap. No, thanks for coming, Linda. See ya. Rab, Stephanie's not here, so Rab, if you can, let us know what your plans are or thoughts about the sustainability, about SAB over the next couple of years.
Muted.
Can't hear you, Rab. Thanks, Tom. Is he?
How about
Is he
this? Does
on?
this work?
Oh, yep, we can hear you now.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm a relatively newcomer in Netherlands. I've been here about a year now, and I have gotten involved a little bit with the Sustainable Advisory Board with respect to an energy subcommittee, which had been somewhat inactive of late, and looking forward to that starting back up. What I'm bringing to that group is 10 years of experience in renewables, so looking forward to getting some of the goals achieved with respect to EVs, with renewable power goals that the town has. And yeah, looking forward to contribute within the sustainability realm. Happy to take any questions on my background. I did fill out the application and have a resume there.
I'll throw one out. If we reform the energy subcommittee, besides the vehicle electrification and maybe solar policy, what else would you want to work on?
Yeah, so the majority of my experience is within solar energy, right now working at the National Renewable Energy Lab. And yeah, I think that, far and away the best renewable resource that Netherlands has is solar. Colorado in general has a lot of solar. So the combination of, a community energy remote net metered program and advocating to actually get solar on individual homes within the township and outside the township would be, top of my list in terms of impact. there's maybe some more novel but perhaps less impactful avenues that could be explored with respect to maybe hydro in the same type of area that that was mentioned for the standing wave. But these are, I think, longer term goals. I think my interest in SAB is really to accelerate and get across the finish line some of the existing projects that are in place, and also to support some of the energy efficiency efforts that are also in place. It's quite ambitious, the goals that are in place now, so I think there's plenty to do there.
Cool. Welcome. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
joining us.
Thanks, Rab. Any more questions for Rab?
Maybe if it's okay, I might just make just a quick announcement. Unfortunately, Larry Tassaday has submitted his resignation from SAB, so it does create another vacancy. Obviously, Rab was the only applicant for the one vacancy we have, so we are short one. Patricia is an alternate, so I was going to ask Patricia Dodd if she would like to move to a regular, and we can open the alternate. But just for this board to be aware, even with the appointment of Rab, SAB would still be short.
Rab from SAB. That's great.
I like it.
Well said. That never crossed my mind until just now. That's a good one. Well, thanks, Rab. We appreciate having you, and definitely appreciate your expertise with NREL. Bring a lot to the table. Any other questions or comments for Rab? Well, thanks. And then those are four of the things on the consent agenda. Any questions on the other 7?
I've got one on, let's see. No, I will defer.
Okay, any other questions?
Oh, yeah, 3.10. What is the I&I Caribbean Cafe, and where is it going to go in the community center?
So they operate the commissary kitchen, and so the I&I actually uses the space next to Blue Owl Books for food. Tony Mon operates the I&I Cafe. He just needs a lease to prepare his food in our commissary kitchen, and then he would take it down for sale outside of Blue Owl.
Okay, excellent. Thanks.
And anywhere else he chooses to operate, but that's his primary operation.
Yeah, I've been to some of his catered events. He puts out a good spread.
Yeah, definitely. He just needs a commissary kitchen in order to do that. So this is just the newest of many. I think Don has like 20 some odd tenants who rotate using our kitchen here.
That's great.
Thank you. Any other questions on the consent agenda items? If not, I move to approve the consent agenda. For
Second.
tonight's meeting, and Tom seconded. Macy?
Mayor Pro Tem Mahold,
Yes.
Mayor Billy,
Yes.
Trustee Sterling,
Yes.
Trustee Corvalon,
Yes.
Trustee Severs,
Yes.
and Trustee Mountain.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Real quick, is Trustee Coombs Ismail going to be here or not tonight? Okay.
For you will be absent.
Okay. So we have one public comment that was sent an email to us, which is in the packet. But now we'll give time for any public comments on non-agenda items. If you have a public comment on a non-agenda item, now is the time. There's no one in the room, so we'll just be looking for folks online. Hearing none, we'll go ahead and move on into our informational item for the evening on the Reimagined Destinations presentation. Peter Gasik, our Public Engagement Manager, will present.
Thank you. Yep. I'm gonna ask Miranda to share the presentation so I can also look at my notes at the same time. All right, excellent. All right, so last summer, the town was approved for the Reimagined Destinations Grant, which I'll kind of go over more detail for those who either weren't around or forgot what we were doing with that grant. But this is just kind of a recap of everything we've done over that time, because as of last Friday, we finished up the majority of the consultation work with that. So here's a little look at just what things I'll go over, kind of the background of the grant, and just how we how we identified tourism in our town, what kind of management structure looking at, and the Do Nederland Right campaign, which is something that came from this grant through the Colorado Tourism Office. So first I'll go over a little bit of the background here. All right. So the first thing that we need to understand with this project is it's not intended to just bring as many tourists to town as possible. It was more a focus on managing the tourism that we already do have, and doing so in a way that works with town's identity and building a reputation as being a responsible tourism destination. So you can see here, this was kind of the mission statement that came out of this project. The purpose of this project is to advance the priority actions that emerged from our Reimagined Destinations program. Yeah, the key focus on this is being responsible and sharing the idea of being responsible with people that travel to and through town while being able to share our history and identity. All right, so, sorry, I lost it. For anyone that wasn't aware, the Reimagined Destinations Grant came with a destination assessment, which you may remember the Reimagined Nederland surveys that went out to residents and tourism shareholders last year. That ended with a full day workshop last November where we took all of those plus 17 of the stakeholders, including like Wild Bear, Teens Inc. There were so many people, I don't even remember all of them. But going over those and identifying those key points that we wanted to focus on in the future with any kind of tourism market. That also included 100 hours of free consultation from the Colorado Tourism Office, which is what wrapped up last Friday, and a $20,000 creative asset production shoot, which will consist of either photos, video, aerial drone shots, kind of whatever mix we want. That will not start until probably next year. They're going to start scheduling in August of this year, and then we can start looking at what time of the year we'd want to have them come up and do all that. So that's going to be a project for 2024, but it's part of the grant, so it's nothing extra on our end. So one of the big things that came out of this project was identifying what tourism is in Nederland. So we are in a unique position as a destination because we are just far enough away to be considered a nice kind of get out of town getaway spot for locals and a destination spot for people traveling from out of town. We're close enough to major urban hubs that people can just come up really quickly and down. So that puts us in a position that other towns of our size may not have to. So there was some kind of unique things to deal with in this. According to the CTO, in 2020, we had 6,600 vehicles come up to Netherlands. That was an outlier number just because that was, during lockdown things. But even with that, they're seeing an increase of probably up to 7,300 by 2030, which doesn't really sound like a lot, but we're a small town. We have one road that goes through everything, so it's a big number. So it's something to think about. We are increasing in visitors every single year, and we work as a central hub both to a lot of the outdoor recreation areas and to other cities along the peak to peak. So we're getting hit kind of in all directions. Let's see here. Sorry, I just lost my place. Yes. But since we're kind of doing this from the grounds up and we don't really have a budget to work with, so a lot of anything we're going to be doing is going to be community focused oriented, especially for the near future. Another part of this grant was structuring tourism management for our town. The value of that is it allows us to kind of get ahead of any trends that might be happening. Right now, our approach is kind of reactionary. We see an issue, we try to manage it best we can. It's been working, but we all see the issues with that and where that can lead us. So it's important for us to focus on structuring tourism management in a way that fits our stated goals of maintaining our identity and being that responsible destination, instead of just letting the visitors decide for us. Because if we decide to just not do anything, choices will be made for us. So what does this tourism management structure look like? So it starts with a DMO, which is a destination marketing and management organization. In this case, that would be us as the town. The role of that is a multifaceted one. That it's the organization that works with local shareholders, community partners, to market the destination in a way that promotes the economy and the visitor experience in ways that we want. It also considers the quality of life for residents and the environment, and makes decisions about any long-term strategies for tourism moving forward. This is what our proposed DMO would look like. So you might be a little hard to see here in the conference room, but it starts with the Board of Trustees and the mayor, like most of our organizational charts. Then it goes to Miranda and then myself, who would be working with any marketing consultants or like with the tourism office, that would be considered one. But also, one thing that was proposed was a tourism advisory subcommittee through ProSab that would meet probably once a quarter or so. And I'll go into a little bit more detail there. And as the supervisor of the visitor center, I would work with our local visitor center and any community volunteers to help push out any other campaigns that we might have. So part of the tourism advisory subcommittee, it would work like any of our other subcommittees, like Zero Waste or the Energy Subcommittee. We'd be looking at 7 volunteer members made up from different parts of the community. So we'd probably have someone from ProSab, business owners, nonprofit owners, someone that is more involved with outdoor recreation, kind of like Eldora maybe, someone that knows more about events, things like that. We'd meet about once a quarter, probably near the end of a season, to discuss, what happened during that season, what we're planning for the next season. And they would work as a support team for any kind of branding initiatives or management plans that we're looking at. So it's not just one person at the wheel doing their best. It has more community involvement. And through that, we would do more public engagement and outreach for it. All right. One of the big things, especially early on with this group, would be integrating tourism into our economic and community initiatives. That wasn't really a focus of Envision 20, but various facets were. So it definitely plays a supporting role in many of the things that were talked about then. So I think it's important to pull from there and see what tourism can be applied to it. Since the focus on resident and stakeholder sentiment surveys, we're really focused on retaining Netherlands' identity. It makes sense to see how it can fit into those overall mission statements, especially when it comes to community, economy, and sustainability. All right. So I mentioned Do Nederland Right at the beginning of this. That is one of the marketing campaigns that CTO devised. It's a modification of their own Do Colorado Right campaign, but with more of a focus on the goals that we outlined during that stakeholder workshop in November. The original Do Colorado Right campaign came out during COVID-19 as a way to educate people about travel restrictions, because there was a lot more outdoor recreation that was happening during that time. They eventually expanded it to have more visitor behavior messaging, and that is a lot of where we would probably be focusing on. Since then, there have been a number of other municipalities, large and small, that have used this program to modify their own tourism management. So like I said, a lot of ours would be focused on the visitor behavior messaging side of it, especially to start. So the reason why is because there are behaviors that we would like to see changed in regards to public lands and in our community. After just hearing back from residents, stakeholders, and we also talked with various land managers, a lot of what we were seeing was due to just lack of awareness. And also inconsistent like signage in different places. So the idea behind Do Nederland Right is to have a consistent branding and messaging that we can share kind of everywhere to get various words out. Here it is. So yeah, like I said, we really focused on identifying what behaviors we were wanting to kind of tackle, where they were happening and when, and trying to find the best messaging that would work for different things, because not every behavior will require the same approach. And yeah, figuring out the messaging and how that looks during a various visitor life cycle, which is this. So the visitor life cycle is broken into 3 phases, pre-trip, trip, and post-trip. So there are certain things like, being aware of parking and picking up that you want to focus more on the pre-trip. And like post-trip, you'd want to be focusing more on, seasonal changes, best times to come up here, things like that. All right, so the resident sentiment survey we launched last August was a huge impact on what our core messaging was. We had 256 residents respond, which was, I think double what we were looking for. Most of them were year round, so we got like a nice kind of mix of thoughts and sentiments. We had 32 businesses also respond to stakeholder surveys, which gave us a very different look at just what they considered to be important aspects. Yeah, and we also did some one-on-one interviews with land area managers. Like we talked with, Colorado Parks and Wildlife, Eldora. We tried to talk with the Forestry Service, but never heard back from them. From that resident survey, these were the community values that came out as what really needed to be focused on and just what our best aspects are. A lot of these, I think, are pretty no-brainers. We come up here because we like the natural beauty and outdoors. But there's more to that, like the potential for a thriving art and cultural scene. That's something that we might be aware of that people coming up to visit might not be aware of. So that is something that is a good focus for messaging. But a lot of what we saw with that survey focused on these areas. So it was actually really nice to see that there's a lot of similar thoughts about what makes Nederland great. Part of that survey was also asking what residents wanted to see or what they wanted visitors to know before visiting. And it was focusing on, small town vibe. Things are slower. We have a respect for nature. And because of that, we also have, there are rules in place for a reason. And that, going car free is a very important thing around here, especially right now. And that we do have a lot of local businesses that need supporting. And yeah, what the other big question was, what do we want visitors to take away from their visit in town? And that was focused on, a respect for our town, its history, and the nature that surrounds it. Just appreciating how unique we are as a town. And yeah, just how inclusive, welcoming, and, slightly weird we are. From the tourism stakeholder survey, which went out to all businesses and nonprofits and land managers, that was more focused on concerns and priorities. As you can see here, there was a big concern about retaining staff, which is something we've been seeing for a while, supply and distribution, and yeah, the top priorities that they identified, again, promoting local businesses and being responsible and respectful of the area, but also building local awareness of the value of our town as a tourism destination, which was not something we really saw in that community sentiment survey. Let's see. Also, talked about some of the behaviors that they wanted to see changed, both in town and outside of town. Again, some of these we're all very aware of, like parking and speeding and trash. So a lot of it really just kind of took what we're already seeing and funneled it into what needs to be prioritized the most. All right, when we did our one-on-one with the land managers, because there weren't as many of them, we were able to do that. That was more of a focus on wildfire and trash. And one of the things that came out of that was, there is signage, especially around like Barker and the river, but it's kind of sparsed in weird places, and like we'll have one sign that has all the rules on it and that nobody wants to see. So trying to break that up into more consistent marketing was important for that, and using that as a way to inform people about risks and the value of packing out what you pack in and things like that. All right, so here are the themes from all of that came out into what is do Nederland right. Do Ned car free, get to know Ned, respect our rules, be careful with fire, trash with trash, stick to the trails, and keep wildlife wild. Those are just the core ones. There's obviously more things that we can focus on in the future, but these are what the community, the stakeholders really told us they wanted us to focus on. Then there is a messaging matrix that the CTO put together for us, which is very large and very dense. I could share it here. I may just make it publicly available for people to see because there's a lot to go through on that. I don't think it would really show up in the presentation that well. All right, so now that we've kind of come to the end of the consultation side of it, one of the last things we did was talking about next steps. So I really think it's important to look into convening a tourism subcommittee to talk about the Do Nederland Right project and to assist with the creative asset shoot when that becomes available next year. Furthermore, there's other no cost to town grants coming up. Destination Blueprint is kind of a continuation of the work we've already been doing through Reimagine Destination. That would be more of a focus on, now that we have the framework, now we can focus on expanding our capacity and really focusing on setting up the structure of what tourism would be in Ned. These are all kind of long-term things that we would be focused on. So like you wouldn't see a lot of marketing campaigns all of a sudden. It's more just trying to get all of our ducks in a row and asking the CTO for help with that. They also have a mentor program and a marketing matching grant, which I don't think we're doing just yet or even have part for. And then there's a governor's convention where they talk about tourism, and there's apparently a scholarship for that. And I just found out about that, so I don't have as much information on it. And then after all of that, find the most effective ways to launch Do Nederland Right, both locally and on all of our platforms, basically. All right. I just threw a bunch of info at you, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
That was great. That was great, Peter. Thank you for doing that. One quick question. When you talked about breaking up some of the signage, the first thing that came to mind for me was, have you seen the burn scar that's real close to Pine as you're going up toward Buffalo Creek?
Oh, yeah.
That's super effective
Mhm.
signage that they used, where it's just one match can do all of this.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree with you. I think that would be great. So, but yeah, great presentation. Thank you.
So what is exactly the Reimagine Destinations Creative Asset Production Shoot?
So they will have a production team go on site to do a bunch of media for us. And that can take the form of photographs, video. They did drone footage. I think they mentioned something else I'm not thinking of right now. Or any combination of those that we want that we can use for marketing purposes or basically anything in the future because it'll just be ours. And they only come up once, so we got to kind of pick what time of year we want to showcase. But it's still free assets to use for any marketing or future materials that we want.
But that's not, is it outlined in the recommendations for fostering long-term resilience? Was it one of those line items, or is this like an additional thing?
It was additional. It was part of
Okay.
the original grant.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, because I was trying to figure out how that comes or where that comes in priority, because it seems like you'd have to like figure out some of the messaging and everything first, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was brought to our attention that we're about 18 months out before we would get that
Okay.
service, just because there's a backlog for their team, because everyone gets it. So just kind of whoever reached, I think, the end of their Reimagine Destinations program first, and so we're in line. But I don't know if it really kind of falls into the priority because there is that delay. It's just something kind of a perk that is coming our way is that those free images that we can then use to Peter's point, whatever we feel is
Yeah.
appropriate.
I actually feel like it's kind of a bonus that we're at the back of the line because it gives us more time to, like you said, just figure out what we want that to look like.
For sure. So this is like super cool from the perspective of we've got like values and things that we can kind of start to put some of that messaging around. How does this fit from what could be potentially a bigger branding strategy for the town, right? Because potentially our branding strategy wouldn't just involve tourism or the responsible management of tourism. So how does it look like this all fits together?
Maybe do a minute. So maybe I'll just jump in really quick. What I will say is that we have that tourism marketing grant that we applied for and received. And so we're going to bring on a third-party consultant who will help really with Netherlands branding and identity. And of course, the work done in Reimagine should be a part of that consideration. But that's so much larger than do Netherlands right. What is tourism? How do you respect our community? That branding money is really like, what is Netherlands? Who is Netherlands? Bigger than tourism. It's who is Netherlands as the locals view it, and how do we share that messaging them with others. So I view that grant and what's coming down the pipeline there as that larger scale branding identity work that we're about to do. And the hope is to have the RFP ready for your approval in July and then work with that consulting team kind of end of summer, beginning of fall, and hopefully end the year with that. You think of Netherlands, you think of blank, and this is now our brand and our identity.
Right. So how will these two play off of each other? So in other words,
yes.
Do Netherlands right? Cool. Yeah, there's a Colorado, do Colorado right? But I mean, there could be something here around respect the wild or something,
So
right?
preliminary conversations we had with the core team of when it came to this tourism marketing grant was a lot of this kind of nature and recognizing that we are this kind of entry place to nature. And so my gut is that you're going to see a lot of that nature component into our brand and identity, but I just don't think we really know until we get in it. And I don't want to make an assumption on behalf of this whole community of what they view as their identity. But we saw that theme really heavily emerge in the sentiment surveys that came out of Reimagine, which is why our Netherlands Do Right themes are so specific to how do you treat our environment and our assets in the best way possible.
One thing to keep in mind is that this grant is mostly for towns that don't have a tourism structure, that really don't know where to start. And so that's kind of what we were just focused on first. So yeah, this has bigger potential, but that wasn't really, we didn't really have time to get into that within the just 100 hours of consultation. However, like through the future projects that we can apply for, like Destination Blueprint, that can be expanded upon to explore how does this fit into like the rest of, you know, town's communication structure.
Mhm.
And maybe let me just tag into that too. That Destination Blueprints really is the continuation of Reimagine Destinations. And also recognizing, to Peter's point, we've never really done a tourism. We don't have that. It's not really built into our team structure. That's of course a little piece of what Peter is about to do, but it's not his background. And so we really value the resources the Colorado Tourism has provided us in order to answer these questions, because Nederland has never envisioned its future as it relates to branding, identity, or what we want tourism to look like. So continuing to utilize the CTO resources and applying for all these grants, especially the free ones that have no match, is in our best interest to continue to really equip town, and more specifically Peter, with what he needs to continue to advance this messaging that we want to push out of what does it mean to come here? What does it mean to respect it? What does it mean to be a part of our community as someone who comes to visit it temporarily?
Yeah, I'd just be looking out for that, like how these two, again, yes, like what you're saying is like the overall bigger branding and how this can kind of fit into it, because if they play off of each other and there's repetition between them, or there's at least synergy, it's going to stick that much better, I think, in people's heads. So, and you know, this whole idea of we're a town within a park is also resonating with some of the things that you've said, such as, you know, the wildlife and everything. So yeah, so that would be interesting to see how that plays out.
And that's why one thing that came up when we were doing our consultation was to look at our Envision 2030 plan.
Yep.
As the starting point for this, and seeing, you know, what work has already been done. You know,
I appreciate that.
that this can just kind of slide into and be a what's the word I'm looking for?
I like the foundation.
Yeah, a
Yeah.
supporting factor in
Mhm.
the things that already want to be done.
Now, in that checklist that was in our packet of all the, you know, whether we play a lead or we play a partner or an advocate, and obviously there's some short-term, medium term, and then long-term things.
Yeah.
So does the blueprint, sorry, Destination Blueprint, does that start to execute on those things? Because I couldn't click on the link, sorry.
Yeah.
Or didn't have the link. Okay, so it starts to execute on those things.
If that's the direction we want to go in, because those are all just, you know, suggested.
These were
Yeah.
suggestions.
It's not, this is what we need to do. But if we find that, you know, X, Y, and Z worked for us, then yeah, that would be starting to execute on those.
And I would have a suggestion in that. So where there are things, and I think identifying behaviors, because I think identifying visitor behaviors also plays into Trustee Seaver's good neighbor values.
Yep.
And how we treat each other locally, where there could be an opportunity to prioritize things that benefit locals. And then, yeah, a couple of things on the side, right, that might sort of help with the management of tourism. But I think like potentially prioritizing some of those, like the sidewalks. I saw sidewalks in there. It's like, please, right? Kind of a thing. I think that could also be a way to help folks understand this program and understand its intention.
Totally. I remember reading, I can't remember, was it one of the public comments on this? I think it was Deb's, talked about not like being cautious of putting the cart before the horse.
Sure.
And that's exactly right. Like we could, put all of our money into just getting as many people up here.
Right.
And that would cause more problems than good.
Yeah.
Without those core foundations, like none, tourism doesn't mean anything. So that's why, this needs to fit into the things we're already planning on doing. And
And just to also add in, I do, when interviewing the consultants for the multimodal transportation plan, we also spoke a lot about this reimagine and just recognizing that the limitations of being able to kind of execute some of aspects of this come down to transportation and the different aspects of transportation. And also recognizing the way in which reimagine can play into the comprehensive plan.
Yes.
And there's a lot of other things. So, the Board of Trustees in the town of Nederland has 5 plans in the works and they all need to work together. And this is just one of those pieces. And so I think Peter and I feel very passionate about continuing and hopefully getting a destination blueprint because it does continue to give us those subject matter experts that then we can tie into the multimodal consultants and the housing consultants and the comp plan and the trails master plan and all these great things that are going on. So to your point, we walk away with one giant comprehensive vision or focus, even though it might be broken into 5 different plans. It's all moving in the same direction because we're doing it all at the same time. And I think it's a really cool time in Nederland to have all of these things going on. Recognize it's a bit overwhelming, and maybe we've talked about kind of survey fatigue, but really asking the community to kind of champion behind everything that's going on here because there is that greater value.
Amen.
Other questions for Peter?
Go ahead,
Yes, yes.
Tanya. Oh, go ahead, Tom.
There were some hands up on the online people.
Oh, cool.
I just had a question for Peter. I just want to make sure that maybe the new Chamber of Commerce that's in town is being involved in this in the future. I know you have the advisory board that hopefully someone will participate in, as well as the DDA. That it should probably come around to the DDA as well. I don't know about the whole presentation, but a shortened version of it, because I'm sure there are some ideas from the business owners on that board as well. But overall, I like the feel of it. I like what you've come up with.
I should mention that during our stakeholder workshop, we had a number of business owners, like people that are already in the Chamber of Commerce and on the DDA. But yeah, I think it's important to, connect with them both and just make sure that we're getting as many eyes on this as possible.
Yeah, the chamber didn't exist at the time in which the workshop happened. And so otherwise, of course, they absolutely would have been there. But we did have representatives from the DDA and the business community. The one thing Peter and I talked about kind of taking this around and maybe tag teaming it a shorter version of this to all the boards and commissions. The one thing I will say about Destination Blueprint is the whole point is to not kind of go backwards and repeat all the steps again. So there wouldn't be a workshop and there wouldn't be all these surveys. Like we have all the tools. We don't need to keep like fleshing that out. Really just taking this and to your point, Trustee Corvallon, and then identifying who are those key leaders for each of these strategies or the strategies we want to move forward on and pulling those people in that capacity instead of like, again, going back to a full workshop. So, but I know some people who are on this call tonight were on that workshop and helped to really create the framework that is this document.
Great. Thank you, guys.
Tom, did you have a question?
No.
I have one on the subcommittee. Is there a reason it's a subcommittee to ProSab specifically? I wondered, like just what Tanya said, like whether it be more DDA or I know we don't have a chamber. I don't believe we have a chamber in town, but
I think the idea, and that this is a suggestion that came from the CTO. I think the idea was that the DDA is just focused on one part of town when a big part of the focus was on the stewardship of the area that's actually outside of our town boundaries, which, includes a lot of open space and trails and things that we may not have jurisdiction over.
I also think pro sub is really just the vessel, because if you look at that slide, and we can send this out, but the slide was like a pro sub member, business members, event planners, maybe Eldora, the youth. It was like,
Yeah.
we really actually were only looking for one pro sub member, but it just was kind of, the subcommittee needs that overarching vessel in which it comes out of. And if that's the board, I mean, the thought was, again, so much of the survey is really grounded in parks, recreation, open space, and really just kind of recognizing that that seems to be a theme that is important to our community, that felt right for it to kind of come under that umbrella.
A town within a park.
A town within a park. We don't even need the branding money.
No,
Done.
can we just wrap this up right now? Okay, I've got notes. Let's just
Done.
sign it. It's good to go.
We'll just keep that 20,000 for other things.
I don't
Well-
think they'll allow that.
No, probably not.
That'd be nice.
So just as a side note, in terms of this wording and branding and everything, so whether it's a park or a town inside a park, trustee Coombs and Smale and I have been kind of working on a side project, and we have been working with the word wild. We're a little wild, just within a wilderness. We have a wild history. We have, you could say, some wild politics from time to time. And so there's something around wild that we've been playing with that could potentially be funny, but also play true to the character of who we are.
During the workshop, one of the original names that we came up with for Do Nederland Right was Give a Buck. So you could use that if you want.
There were also some very unique wind related ones that are not appropriate.
Yeah.
For this setting, but go find Kayla if you'd like to hear them.
I would
Quite
expect nothing less.
Great ideas.
But even something like give a buck. I mean, I'm sorry, but that's so Ned. I mean, it's just, it is. So I think and again, this is why I'm asking those questions about the overall marketing. Let's bring out that personality a bit, because it is something I think that we're proud of, and we want other folks to know about it. So.
Mayor Billy, are you taking, I know it's informational item, are you taking public comment?
I did not intend to, but would people like to hear public comment? on that?
I'd be interested to hear.
Okay,
some
I think we
things.
have.
So
plenty of
Barb
time.
Hart had her hand raised
Yeah,
first.
yeah, go Barb.
Thanks, Billy. I was on the subcommittee when it started, and I do remember, 30 or 40 different names being tossed back and forth. I don't remember settling on Do Ned Right. I think that it is childish, and I think that we need to come up with something better for our community that really says who we are. I think it would be really nice to put that information back out to the public so that they can vote on 5 names or something, so that we don't get stuck with something that we're stuck with for a very long time to come. The second thing is, no, the chamber was not formed when this started, but it is formed now. And I think this falls more under a chamber than having the town handle this. I think it's something that the chamber could take on as a whole and work with all of the different chambers in the Peak to Peak region to build on each other, instead of it being only focused on Nederland, even though it would encompass outside of Nederland because of trails. So I would really like to see it stay out there and go back out for an RFQ from other entities than just the town to handle this. I think there are more qualified people and businesses out there that could do this in a way that would really represent the entire community and not represent the community from a town standpoint.
Mayor Billy, can I just comment really quickly on that?
Yeah, oh yeah.
So Barb, I think that the chamber is eligible to apply for CTO funds on their own, and I would encourage the chamber to look into that. Nederland, of course, was awarded this funding as the town itself, so that's going to create that limitation to a town-oriented plan. But I think if the chamber did apply for CTO funds, I think it'd be a great opportunity to continue to collaborate. So my recommendation would be that you all look into that.
But at the meeting, one of the main conversations at the end of the meeting was not having the town be in charge of this down the road. And that was in my notes everywhere, that it would be a collaborative effort with people in the community and not just the town.
And that is the intention, to involve the greater community, of course, but our funding is going to come from the town, and so then the town has a central role in it. But if you look at the document that was in the packet, there is a lot of kind of these advocacy roles where I do agree that the chamber then steps in and the town just supports.
Barb, can I just ask a clarifying question? Who were you, who, who did you have in your mind that would actually manage this program? You're saying that it would have been like a Chamber of Commerce?
I think it would fall under a chamber specifically. It would fall under an organization that represents all sides of the businesses of the town, as well as the people of the town. And I don't think it's DDA because we are a very limited area for DDA, but a chamber specifically would normally control this type of grant funding and moving forward and working with the community, not the town.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's, I don't totally understand it, but like, you know, whether it's, one thing that the chamber is a peak-to-peak chamber, right? So I think it, when you talk about we don't have jurisdiction over some of these open spaces, you know, neither has the chamber, but the chamber is going to include folks who might, you know, like Gilpin County, or, you know, it's going to include, I mean, it's yet to be seen what will happen, but there is something about the fact that it goes beyond just the town boundaries.
Tanya Unger also had her hand up.
Tanya?
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Thank you. So just more on some mechanics of that. I myself am a volunteer member of the Peak to Peak Chamber of Commerce, and it is correct. We are going to have our first official board meeting on June 15th at 7 p.m. So I'm looking forward to collaboration, nothing contentious. I think we have a bunch of win-wins, and we also have some shared interests in tourism and the corridors of tourism here. So just opportunity abounds. Next thing I'd like to say is a plug again for June 17th, because in our discussions with Dr. Bernard Amadei, which will happen June 17th on Saturday, from 10 to noon at the community center and also via Zoom, I would encourage Peter, other members of town staff to go ahead and attend, because we have a bunch of citizens who are also proposing that we have some kind of ecotourism. There was a large discussion about that. So I think we have a lot of parallel conversations. I just like to keep the doors of communication open. There's no need for toe stepping. We all have some good ideas and shared interests at the table. So just mark those 2 dates, and please, everyone is welcome to attend.
What time and where is the meeting on the 15th?
The 15th is an online Zoom meeting, and we'll be announcing the Zoom link on the Peak to Peak Chamber of Commerce website. If anybody is interested, they can email me and I can share that with Miranda to make sure that gets out to people. And then June 17th is at the community center, 10 to noon. It will also be on Zoom, so we can have a wider audience present. And again, that's the organic conversation with Dr. Amadei, where everybody can come to the table with their concerns. I think we have a lot of siloing going on in the various conversations, and this conversation with Dr. Amadei is meant to break through that.
Thanks, Tanya. Any other comments? One recommendation I would give the Peak is to take the video of Victor, Idaho off of it and put something from the Peak to Peak on instead off their website. Let's bring it back to the board for any final questions for Peter.
Hi, this is Tanya. I want to agree with Barb about the Do Nederland Right slogan. I do think it needs to get workshopped and brought to the public for some, maybe a little more creative. If we're going to be branding it and it's going to become, you know, the thing we're going to be hearing for our tourism, I think we could do better. But maybe let's bring it out and see, maybe we can't do better, but let's see if they can get some more ideas out there.
Oh, I think we can do better. That's just what the CTO came up with. So, you know, we don't need to use it if we don't like it.
Okay, I don't love it. I don't hate it. I agree with the sentiment of it, but let's see what else we come up with.
Maybe I can just add, so when we did our exit kind of with the CTO, they have a lot of course, branding and marketing material for Do Nederland Right, or that can do Colorado Right, do blank right, that can be modified. But that's why they also created a lot of those Nederland specific campaigns, and just recognizing that we might want to do above and beyond. But those are resources, again, yet another resource that can be utilized or manipulated however we want to for us, because it came from the CTO and this strong embedded campaign that they've had for the last 3-4 years. So just I think for me, just kind of the takeaway is that that's a tool. Doesn't mean it's our end all be all. It's just something we have access to now under this kind of Do Nederland Right umbrella.
So I guess we can do Nederland better.
I stopped myself from saying it.
Sorry, I couldn't help myself.
Well, thank you. Any more questions for Peter? Any more?
No, I just want to take a moment just to really thank Peter. This
Yeah,
has
thank
been
you. Yeah.
a campaign that, so when I learned I applied for this kind of just like in secret and because it was free, and I was like, let me see what happens. And when we were awarded, passed it on to Peter, and he graciously kind of took it and ran with it. And I really appreciate what he's done, what his vision is, how he'll carry this forward. So just want to offer that thanks and praise for pulling this together and just keeping us moving on this, what I think is a very exciting opportunity before us. So thanks, Peter.
Thanks, Peter.
Here, here.
Yeah, thanks, Peter, and thanks for the presentation too.
Thank you, everybody.
Look forward to seeing it develop and evolve.
And just another shout out that Peter YouTube Live is up and happening, and all thanks to Peter.
We had some hiccups at the beginning, but it seems to be working now pretty efficiently. Yay.
Hello, YouTubers.
Awesome.
There were 5, and then I dropped down to 3 right when I said that. So I don't know what happened, but come back.
So thanks a bunch. And from here, we'll move on to an action item. Does anyone need a break? Okay, we're going to take a 5-minute break. We're going to take a 8-minute break. We'll be back at 8:25. want to thank you. At the request of one of the trustees, since YouTube Live is new to all of us, we are going to ask Peter to kind of just give us a little more instructional, because folks are trying to use it presently and maybe having some issues. So we want to hand it over to Peter for a minute.
Sure. Yeah, so this is kind of our stress test of the YouTube live streaming. It's something that both Jesse and I independently thought was something we wanted, and then he mentioned it to me, and I was like, hey, I've been thinking about that too. So here we are. Ultimately, it works as just another avenue for anyone that wants to turn or just tune in to a meeting. It's not as robust as joining WebEx because we only have so many people here to help run things. We had to turn off like comments and the public chat room. So we won't be able, we wouldn't be able to monitor those and, run the meeting at the same time. So it's really just a way to kind of just tune in, see what's happening. But the bonus is that it's way more accessible than needing to be at a computer to log in. Because if you're just sitting on your couch and you just pull up your phone and go to YouTube, and where it'll say, hey, we're streaming, and you can just click on it. The one thing I was playing with like at the very beginning of the meeting was to make sure that the embedded version of that stream was working on the front page of the website. So if people go to just townofnederland.colorado.gov and scroll down a little bit, they should see all of our smiling faces as we appear on WebEx. I tried doing it on my computer while we were here, but the internet here is kind of iffy. But it worked on my phone when I turned the internet off. So I think it was just it doesn't like watching the stream. So those are a few other aspects. It's really easy from a backend to turn on, which is really nice. So I want to show all of the boards how we do this. And also in September, we will need this for our municipal court because it will become state law that we will need to be able to stream court proceedings.
Thank you for getting that set up, Peter.
Oh, yeah,
Really
totally.
cool. Hey, Peter, is there going to be a way in which we can show the information about the WebEx if people wanted to log on, like below in the, is there like an information panel that we could add on there?
Yep, we can.
I think it's.
Well, I think, yeah, it's on the website, but also I think we can put that into the description box on the YouTube channel.
Cool.
So when people go there, it'll just have a link to WebEx.
Yeah, it's right. I just went to the town website. It's right there. It's pops right up. Big screen on the right. Takes up plenty of. If you can't miss it. So and I said a Trustee Severs asked for this time for Peter to tell everyone how this works in case you're having problems out there, and appreciate Jesse and Peter's work and everyone else who was part of making this happen in our first attempt towards BOTV.
I would like to also just note that this isn't going to be replacing our recordings. Like the video will still go on the YouTube channel after like a week after, so people can watch it in retrospect if they want. Just in case anyone was worried about that.
Thank you. That's good clarification. Anything else on this? If not, we'll go ahead and go to our one and only action item tonight, the referendum petition protest hearing officer appointment, and our town clerk Macy and our town administrator Miranda and town attorney Jennifer will present.
Awesome. Thank you, Mayor Billy. So at our last meeting together on May 16th, Attorney Madsen explained to us that the town has received a referendum petition protesting the effect of Ordinance 837, and the referendum petition has been deemed sufficient. So a protest in writing under oath may be filed by any registered elector in the municipality challenging the sufficiency of the petition, and that protest must be filed by 5 p.m. on June 14th. If a protest of the petition sufficiency is filed, then the town must hold a hearing on the protest. The statute requires that the town clerk holds the hearing unless the Board of Trustees decides to appoint another person to act as the hearing officer on the protest. The town clerk or the appointed officer is in a role similar to a judge for the purposes of the protest hearing. The structure of the hearing depends on the grounds stated in the filed protest of the petition sufficiency. The protest hearing can be similar to a mini trial with testimony presented from witnesses on the various issues. The town clerk or hearing officer would listen to and review the evidence at the hearing. Following the protest hearing, the town clerk or the hearing officer issues a written determination as to grounds for protest and the sufficiency of the referendum petition. The town is aware that a protest petition will more than likely be submitted to the town clerk by the deadline. In preparation for a protest hearing, the town clerk is requesting that the board appoint a third-party hearing officer. I have reached out to a few individuals who are willing to serve. Karen Goldman, she has served as Aurora's deputy city clerk for more than 30 years and serves as an advisor to municipal clerks throughout the Colorado Municipal Clerks Association, offering a wealth of knowledge and experience. Goldman is considered to be a subject matter expert on elections, municipal initiatives, referenda, and referred measures. Goldman has previously worked with the town in 2019 as the hearing officer for the recall protest. She is available June 15th, June 19th, June 20th, or June 21st, and her fee is $80 per hour. I have reached out to Kathy Haddock, who is a former Boulder and Nederland attorney who recently retired from the Boulder City Attorney's Office. She is available within the necessary time frame, and her fee is $350 per hour. I have also reached out to Bill Tuthel. Bill has spent 15 years in the Jefferson County Attorney's Office representing the clerk and recorder on election issues. During his 13 years as the Broomfield City and County Attorney, Tuthel was involved in numerous election matters, including a challenge to a recall petition. Tuthel has served as a hearing officer in many circumstances over the past 20 years and is currently doing work for Douglas County, San Miguel County, and the city of Durango. He is available within the necessary time frame, and his fee is $225 per hour. So, I guess we'll go to financial consideration. It is challenging to estimate the cost for a hearing officer. However, for context, for the recall protest hearing in 2019, Goldman spent 1 hour prepping for the hearing, 3.25 hours on the hearing, 5.25 hours preparing the findings, and billed for mileage at the federal rate. The total invoice was $577.38, but Goldman was charging a lower rate at the time. Goldman is our lowest rate that I was able to find at $80 per hour. So my question for you is, who would you like to appoint as the protest hearing officer?
Thanks, Macy. Any clarifying questions for Macy? Or
Yeah,
Mark?
there's a pretty big disparity in pricing. Was the work we did with Goldman before satisfactory? Is there any reason we wouldn't go with Goldman again?
So I was the clerk at that time, and I would say Goldman's work is satisfactory. And again, she really is a subject matter expert amongst all clerks and does a lot of these hearings. I also spoke with the protesters, the pending protesters, and they were comfortable with Goldman being the hearing officer. I have not heard from the referendum petitioners, but of course, one of those petitioners is the former mayor, and My assumption would be that he was comfortable with the way in which she conducted that hearing. She was very professional, very to the point, kept it incredibly structured, which I think is important in these situations. And I do think she was fair in kind of ruling on both sides, recognizing where protesters maybe had some sufficiency in their protest, while she ultimately did deem that the recall stood. I do think she was very balanced in her approach to that.
That's great. And the availability is good too. The price is right.
We did contact the community center about availability. The 21st is not an option. And so really we'd be looking at probably the 19th or the 20th if we were to go with Goldman. The 15th is just, that's the day after the petitions are due. That's next to impossible. But ideally, you know, having a quick turnaround is not a bad thing. You want to, of course, move. We have until July 5th, but I think it's appropriate to kind of move things as quickly as appropriate. What does happen in a hearing is that the hearing officer has the ability to subpoena certain individuals. So we want to make sure we give a couple of days to allow that process to unfold. So that is maybe the one thing about Goldman is just recognizing that limitation on time.
Are those meetings hybrid or live, or how do they?
So we weren't hybrid back in the day. We didn't
Right.
have this fun stuff. I do think that could be done in a hybrid capacity. What happened when we had the recall was subpoenas. We would, typically email them and then ask for someone to waive physical delivery, which would be ideal in this circumstance if we had that fast turnaround. But the protests and the petitioners can submit a list of who they'd like subpoena, but ultimately it's the hearing officer's decision on who they would call after reviewing the protest and the petitions.
I would also add to that and say that if the Board of Trustees appoints a hearing officer to oversee the protest hearing, then the hearing officer is really going to decide how the process is going to work, what the format is going to be, and just how it all play out.
We do recognize just from a date, just kind of fleshing out, say it is the 20th, say you are going with Goldman, that is a Board of Trustees meeting date. Our recommendation would be to set up this room as is and just kind of work with the structure of this room. But again, that is operating off that kind of assumption that you would be going with Goldman, who would like to pick the later of the dates if she was selected as your hearing officer.
Any more clarifying questions for Macy, Miranda, or Jennifer? If not, let's go ahead and open up for public comment. I see.
Chris Larson.
Okay, there we go. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, good evening, guys. This is Christopher Larson, Nederland resident. I heard my name pop up there, and I just wanted to weigh in that, yeah, the judge that was used a few years ago, that's the most affordable option, is definitely, I think, the obvious choice for this. Is again, she did a great job, and as a subject matter expert, should be the one we choose again for this event. Thanks.
Thanks, Chris. Any other comments? Hearing
What
none.
are
Oh,
we being asked to where are we going with this, Mayor Billy? Are we making a decision on
yeah, the question
what we
before
want
the
to do?
board.
Where are we going?
The question before the board, towards the bottom of the name is who does the BOT want to appoint as the protest hearing officer? So we are going to, just a sec, we're messing with your sounds because I don't know if you
He
can.
can hear you. You just wouldn't be able to hear him right
Okay,
now.
I think it's fixed. So we're going to appoint someone. It's just a matter of who I think is our, well,
There are proposed motions in the
yeah,
email that we would encourage you to read that would have you basically insert the name of the person you wanted to appoint.
does anyone have anything they want to discuss?
I move to approve Resolution 2023-27, appointing a hearing officer for a protest to the referendum petition and appoint Karen Goldman as the hearing officer.
Second.
So Tom seconded. Do you want to have any discussion? My only discussion is, I think it's between her expertise and a good price. It's a no-brainer. And so, yeah, let's do this. Anything else? Macy?
Trustee Mountain,
Yes.
Trustee Sterling,
Yes.
Mayor Billy,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Mahold,
Yes.
Trustee Severs,
Yes.
and Trustee Corvalon.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. The motion passes unanimously. And so we will be contacting Karen Goldman. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Macy. Presenting. So now we're going to move into our first discussion item of the night, the amendment of the annexation ordinance. And tonight presenting on the aim will be trustees Nicole Sterling and trustee Tanya Corvalin.
So what you have before you is a discussion item about the amendment of the annexation ordinance. So as a summary, back in December of 2022, Ordinance 834 passed after public debate and holding an annexation town hall. There have been two primary areas of concern. Concern number one. In section 15-24C, it states that the failure of the Planning Commission to provide a recommendation within 7 days of the Planning Commission meeting shall be deemed an unconditional recommendation of approval of the annexation and/or zoning ordinance. Now, we're bringing this before as just a reminder because I'm not sure if others have experienced this, but I know I continue to get this question. And so we're bringing this particular section back around for awareness as many folks are still confused as to why. Why is the Planning Commission only has 7 days from their meeting to provide a recommendation? Well, the answer is that the public hearing on the annexation petition is set by the BOT when there is a determination that the petition complies with the Annexation Act and that the Netherlands Annexation Ordinance. At that meeting, the BOT adopts a resolution of substantial compliance and sets the public hearing. Now, pursuant to Colorado State Statutes, Section 31-12-108, that public hearing is required, and here's the sticking point. It is required to be not less than 30 days, nor more than 60 days after the adoption of the resolution of substantial compliance. More time cannot be given to the PC for consideration and deliberation because then there could be a claim against the town that it did not follow state statute related to annexation procedures. And these state statute timelines in the Annexation Act cannot be adjusted by our Netherlands ordinance. So we also felt that it was important to mention that state statute does not require, this was an additional step that was actually put into our ordinance. It does not require referral to the PC. This, again, it's another checks and balance. So therefore, the PC referral is not contemplated in the timelines dictated by state statute, and perhaps that is why the state statute or deadlines seem tight. So that was just one thing that we wanted to bring back around as awareness because we are getting continued, at least I have continued questions about that. Now, and we can talk about it when we come to our discussion, but, some suggestions have been, well, why do we have to have unconditional, approval? Are there other ways? But we really are limited by that state statute. So it's just kind of something to keep in mind. Concern number two, and this was even the most hotly debated subject between us as a BOT. So, however, the subject requiring further discussion and debate because of all of the feedback we did get is section 15-27, which contains language outlining the procedure for electors to create a petition for special election. It states, the petition for special annexation election shall be signed by at least 30 registered electors of the town of Nederland and submitted to the town clerk within 30 days after the publication of the annexation ordinance. I am so proud of the fact that this board came to that compromise. And while coming to a compromise on 30 registered electors was a compromise amongst the BOT, it may be too easy of a goal that will inevitably lead to a vote of the electorate. As previous BOT members have stated, going to a vote of the electorate will determine more quickly and potentially efficiently how the community feels about the annexation. The public-wide vote has been the most debated subject of this new annexation ordinance, and if it makes the citizens feel better about Ordinance 834, that more checks and balances are put in place, then let the people have what they have been asking for. We propose that any annexation larger than 10 acres or requiring a change of zoning based on adjacent properties will automatically trigger a special election. So that is the discussion item we have before you.
Any clarifying questions for Nicole or Tanya? I have one. And you know, I probably was in this meeting and should know the answer, but as previous BOT members have stated, going to a vote of the electorate will determine more quickly. Is it just more quickly because it cuts out the referendum process, or why is it more quickly?
Yeah, it cuts out the referendum because it's almost at this point, and we've you know seen this happen even with what's happened with 101st Street and our protest that's going to happen. They needed 60. It was something that they were able to get. 30 is now. I mean, hindsight 2020. It's probably pretty easy to get. It's going to be a step that's taken. So to whereas I thought in the past that perhaps it was more efficient, I don't know that it's more efficient. It may be just more efficient to skip that step and go immediately to the vote. But I'd also like, you know, Trustee Corbalon, if you have other thoughts on that as well. You know,
I just wanted to piggyback on that because then obviously then there could be a protest for that referendum. And I think in the end, I think the applicant might appreciate knowing from the get-go that there's going to be an election for what they're trying to do so they can prepare for it, campaign for it, versus you know, assuming the referendum will happen and then perhaps assuming there'll be a protest and then, you know, dragging the process out a few months when they could just get right to it and have the election and know sooner. Also, the issue of the cost, which I think we're going to discuss later, but if there was a referendum, then it becomes the cost of the elections always ends up on the burden of the town versus we could easily put the cost of the election on the burden of the applicant. And that would just take just one extra expense off of our budget.
Because presently, the way it's written, it is on the applicant.
Oh,
In
even with the
1627.
referendum?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, then that's a moot point.
Yeah, with the referendum as well.
Oh, okay. Because this last referendum that's happening, the cost would come on us, but, so that's not an issue then. But I do think that it's just more clear to have guidelines for when we have an election, so that it's not so arbitrary and, I think it's more efficient and I think it holds maybe closer to what I would consider my values, which is to let the public speak on matters that will affect town greatly, you know.
Thanks. Any clarifying questions for Tanya? If not, let's go to public comment. I know we got a couple folks who wrote in public comments on this, but are there any, even though they're not really attached? Yes, they're wrong page. Yeah, but any other comments from the folks attending now? All right, we'll bring it back to the board for discussion, and really it's just questions before the board. This isn't an action item, if I'm reading correctly. This is a discussion item, so we are going to give guidance by answering these questions. The bullets are on page 263.
Yeah, and the only other thing I would add is I think we as a board, we take a lot of feedback, we take a lot of public comment, and not all of it can or should be acted on, right? Because I mean, if we acted on every single thing, it would be chaos.
We'd be doing different things at the same time at all times.
Exactly. I mean, however, this has been, I think, and, you know, from the town hall, from the public engagement, annexation discussion topic, from the people that wrote in. I mean, when back last year when we had lots of people writing in, this was probably the most received feedback was around this town election. And so it's kind of just, it's for me, it's one of those things. It's like, yeah, you know, I can let that go. And it's probably benefits everyone. I don't know that we lose anything. And people have asked for it. So why not? Let's do it. But interested to hear how other folks are thinking.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I'll just say one thing. I'm going to take the softball one first. I was surprised to hear that the statutory, like it's not, I can't find a word right now, but that sending it to the PC is not, the state statute does not require referral to the PC. I guess I was surprised to hear that. So that puts that in perspective some. The other folks have comments on this? I have more on 27, but I mean, it's, I'm a little, I'm torn. I'm not really, you know, stuck on either right now. I initially voted to have a, required, I was in the minority voting to have a required vote, but then I really kind of appreciated the infamous chai tea at Kathmandu that brought together the two sides and came up with a good compromise that kind of, I felt like threaded the needle and got us on board with the, with doing the annexation ordinance and, or, approving it as a board. And, I think indeed it makes sense that just going straight to vote takes, would speed things up. And I felt like the compromise of just making it easier to do the referendum was there. I think part of it for me was, and I don't have a, glaring example in my brain, but if there was an annexation that everyone wanted, it just seems like a waste of time. And it happens to be 10.3 acres or requires a change of zoning. That's where it, to me, the compromise made sense. And I know you're worried about people scapegoating if they do the referendum, but they're going to get scapegoated anyways if it's 60 or 40 or whatever. And it just, I mean, I'm not trying to minimize that, but like the different sides are going to be hard on each other.
Well,
Exclamation point.
Billy, it could go both ways where 30 people could get together and demand an election for an annexation near their neighborhood that is less than 10 acres and not a change of zoning just because for whatever reason. Because as we said earlier, 30
That's a
people
good point.
can band together. So it could actually work to be less effective and more of a hindrance to our annexation policy. Because all it takes is 30 people.
That is a good point. But that can be done anyways, right? Any decision we
Oh,
make.
that's true, but it's 60,
It would have to be
right?
60
It's
people.
double that
I
would
see
be
what
the
you're saying.
60 number.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So I don't know why there is pushback on just this simple election requirement. Seems like it puts, just even like if I had to go out there and get 30 signatures and, spend a couple days at the coffee shop, I don't know why that burden has to go on a person per se. You know, when I mean, it's not like annexation is not a big deal. I mean, look what happened in Big Springs and all the problems that we have up here, and
it seems to me to allow the power of 7 BOT members for something that can affect the community for decades. I just don't understand the pushback, but I'll leave it there.
And it was just, we said we'd have the town hall, we said we'd hear the feedback, we said we would consider amendments, and this has been the most proposed amendment.
Thoughts, other trustees?
Well, I'd like to see this come back as an action item. We could just vote and just be done with it once and for all.
Let's hear
Everybody
from
say
the other
what?
trustees.
Yeah, I'm waiting.
I'm happy with our existing ordinance at the moment, so.
Yeah, I would agree.
But I can't hear you, Jen.
It's better.
Yes.
I would definitely agree
Specific, do you mean, would agree with what?
with Trustee Severs.
There's on the AIM, there's 3 questions before the board.
Right.
If we want to amend sections 15-24 and 1527 for annexation larger than 10 acres, then who pays for the election? So it sounds like we're being, since this is not yet an action item, are we looking for a nod of the board on these three questions?
Yeah, we should probably break them into one. Yes, sir. I intend to do that. I just want to hear from everyone first, but we would do,
Sure.
I would go bullet by bullet and not a 4, on whatever, seems to be the way we want to go with each one.
So the impact of 1524C is that what exactly would be, what's the impact on, is it negate needing to go through the planning commission, or what's the impact of bullet number 1?
The way I read the whole thing is that we wouldn't do anything because on some level it turns out that the 7 days is something we put into the process that isn't even spelled out by the state. The state would say you don't even have to use the PC. So by giving it a 7 day, I think the wording makes people feel like, oh, there's the PCs. Doesn't matter what they think. It's just going to go straight back as an approval, an auto approval. But we put it in there, and I think we've seen the PC can act quickly on things.
So is that essentially taking out 1524C really doesn't have any real impact, right? I mean, essentially the 7 day thing, sometimes in many cases simply can't happen that fast, and it's not required anyway. So the result is it doesn't go before the planning commission. If I read this right, is that I'd go back to the 2 trustees that have worked on this.
Yeah, I'll let them answer, man. I interpreted it one way.
Yeah, so the question was if there was any creative ideas that we're just not thinking of, but we really are bounded by state statute. And you're right, Tom, in that this is not required by state statute. This is an additional step that we have written into it. And I'll give credit where credit is due, where Eric, Trustee Coombs Ismail has written it into it. And it reads as 7 days from their meeting. So if they have a meeting and they don't make the decision, they have 7 days from that meeting to come together and make the final decision. So it is giving them a little bit of breathing room. It's not 2 weeks, it's not a month, but because we risk, if it goes to their next meeting, it risks triggering and going past those 60 days. So we're not necessarily making any recommendation for 15-24C. We're just bringing it as awareness. We're making sure we're all on the same page as to why that is, why it is.
Okay, so I guess on bullet number 1, I'd have to agree with Trustee Severs. The effect of just leaving it is almost minimal. Does anybody disagree?
I agree with you. I don't disagree.
Yeah, and
Okay.
and again, Trustee Corvalon and I are not recommending any change. It's
Mhm.
mostly just awareness. We need to be all on the same page of why it is the way it is.
Okay.
I'm looking for a not a 4 on the first bullet, which is, do you wish to amend section 15-24C, and if so, how? I'm looking for a not a 4 that we do not amend section 15-24C.
So we nod to not approve or not to amend.
Am I double negating?
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
looking for a no.
Yeah, I think you've got a no from me. I would leave it
Okay.
as is. I
Yes,
think I've
thank
heard
you.
the same from the others.
We're looking for not nods, but what do you call it? Shakes.
Fist pumps.
Yeah. I do not wish to amend it.
I do
How about
not
if we just say it that way?
Okay.
The four of us here, Tom, Tanya?
Yeah, I
with
mean,
Not
I
amending
wanted to
1524?
amend it, but we can't because of the statute, but
Right.
I didn't like
Right.
I didn't
Yeah.
like how it was written.
Yeah. Well, we
Yeah,
can
it-
educate
it's-
people. We
it's
can
not
educate
pretty.
people now. Okay, great. So I think,
Should we go to bullet 2?
yes, we should.
Will you have my nod for putting it on a action item?
My nod.
As well.
Just to be clear, what we're saying is, the nod is, do you wish to amend section 15-27 requiring a special election for annexation on anything larger than 10 acres, or that requires a change of zoning? Or do you wish to require a special election but have suggestions for the criteria not listed above? So I think we have to, before we nod, we have to know what we're nodding or not nodding about.
Right.
Nod.
Which,
Let's
right,
got 2
that
questions.
sentence has 2 options. It doesn't have 1 option, it has 2 options. Why don't you talk about what you would?
I'm nodding for, do you wish to amend section 15-27 requiring a special election for annexation larger than 10 acres or that require a change of zoning?
Okay. Thank you.
Me too.
And what
Awesome.
I'm hearing are both trustees that brought this proposing that we amend 1527.
Correct.
Yes.
I mean, not today, but in the future.
Okay, and the rationale primarily is refresh my memory.
So, based off the annexation town hall we had, based
Yep.
off the community engagement meeting that we had at the library on annexation, and the public
survey.
comment.
Mhm,
Say that again?
mhm.
The
And
survey as
results.
well.
Then the survey results. This was the most hotly debated and most requested item was to have a public vote.
Mhm.
While I was one of the ones who originally said, yeah, would rather just have the 30, do the referendum. I'm seeing that's almost now an extra step in the process to
Mhm.
whereas something like this would probably just go automatically to a vote anyway. And so I'm seeing it as potentially a cleaner process. It puts it to the people. It allows them to vote on it, gets their pulse on it. And again, it would be potentially something that would happen anyway.
Okay. And if I presume, have we already written the language if we wanted to amend 1527?
We have not.
No.
So we would bring this
Okay.
before at a later date.
Yeah, preferably with the 7 of us.
Yeah.
But I mean,
Sure.
So,
required.
yeah. So again, this has been, we struck the ordinance in December 2022 saying we will hear you out. We will be open to amendments. While we may not be able to act on anything, and clearly 15-24C represents that it illustrates that.
Sure.
But we have heard ample amount of feedback about 15-27, and I think that it should be okay for us to go ahead and amend that. to show that we're listening.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable, and it sounds like it sounds reasonable to you as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Then what we would, on this one, a nod would be, yeah, we want to amend it. No, the language hasn't been written yet. Yes, we should probably write it up because there's substantial public support for this. And we need to, it warrants taking a very close look at it and moving it to an action item next time. Is that accurate?
I would say that's accurate from my perspective, Billy.
Okay.
Yeah, just so you know, it probably wouldn't be next time. 20th is pretty booked. But it would be soon.
We'll just say down the road.
Yes, very, soon down the road, yes. I have a question on this though. Suppose there was a 10.3 acre property that gets annexed that everyone's just so happy about, and now we have to do an election. I mean, to me, that's there needs to be something written in there to have the option to not do an election if the public sees no need.
It's
because we don't even need
it's
60
pretty
signatures.
slippery.
It just
How would
automatically
you-
happens now.
So
How would you find that out?
without doing an election, you wouldn't really know if everybody thinks it's a
I
great
got a
idea.
feeling that we'll find out. Just, I mean, I could be incorrect, but, looking at the annexations we have had, it appeared, it has been that people show up and make it clear, but good point. I can't
mean,
really, I don't have a good example, but
Noisy people show up sometimes, and we really don't have a good sounding. We have noisy people come in. We make sometimes an accommodation for the noisy people, and we get endless flack for not listening to all the people.
okay.
I mean, I would say almost every big annexation we've had, like, I just can't imagine there'd be something that wouldn't have some controversy. But
I guess
maybe we just want to talk about maybe just a change of zoning as being more important because, if you're adding 10 houses to 10 acres, maybe that's really not a big deal. But
well,
our infrastructure, but Caribou Ridge ended up being pretty big deal, and that whole neighborhood by the elementary school ended up being a pretty big deal to us, and we're still paying for it. We just had to do a whole big well pump thing, and I mean it's not a bad thing or anything, but all these annexations, they have consequences and affect generations down the road. I mean, I guess I would be okay if it's just a zoning thing, but something to be debated about more, perhaps.
Yeah,
I just,
I
I
don't
know
think we
10
have to
acres is
decide
a
that.
lot.
Right.
I mean, I don't even know.
it's a lot, but it's somewhat arbitrary.
Yeah, it is arbitrary, just picking a number. So, I mean, but if you said anything else, like that's something like, oh, something with a significant impact on the community, well,
Mhm.
What does that
that's
mean?
very
Yeah, it has to
arbitrary
be
too.
defined, yeah.
No.
Yeah, with what is you have to define significant impact, and that's what the impact studies are all about. I just don't. First of all, I don't think this is going to happen that often. I don't. Do you
Right.
anticipate a whole lot of annexations over 10 acres occurring? I don't, and maybe. So what? So what if it goes to election and everyone votes for it? It's not that big of a deal.
I guess we should go to bullet number 3 because that has an impact on bullet number 2. What is what do special elections cost, Miranda? Are we talking about roughly $3 to $5 grand per?
Yeah, about 3,000 kind of average.
Yeah, I think you should go to the applicant. I mean, they're already going to be. You're
Yeah,
developing
it's round
10
out there
acres.
on top of, yeah.
Not that much money.
Yeah, you just bake it into your, because you're probably
Yeah.
spending quite a bit more than
I mean,
on this whole
I do
effort.
think, like the same thing could happen the reverse, Billy, where 30 neighbors don't want somebody to annex across the street from them, and they create a huge roadblock just for like a few acres or something, just because they don't like the neighbor or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we're
it's
close to, I think we're in
both,
a,
so for me,
Yeah.
it's about giving people what they want,
being democratic, taking some of the power off of our shoulders and the responsibility and the blame in the future, so that 10 years down the line, it's not Trustee Corvalon screwed up town, allowing that annexation to come in. It was on the voters, and it's off my responsibility radar, and it's what people want, and it's democratic. And that's what I'm all about. I'm not about 7 people determining the future of the community just because I might think it's a good idea.
I wish Eric was here tonight to give us
Yeah,
a
I do
speech
too.
on democracy.
So, the other argument, because Billy, you bring this up, like if it's so good, like why have the town vote? And being a part of the public engagement, community discussion, being part of, the town hall, I mean, we were all here, but even in that public engagement, it was probably split half and half down the line of, and probably more people who would be against annexation, just slightly more. But we had 35 people attend that. And so this is half the people were just in that room that would have already have signed that petition, right? Or that referendum. So for me, again, it's just like at one point I would have thought that doing the 30 would have been more efficient, but I don't see it anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, just we are learning that a referendum goes with a 40-day protest period, and yeah, I mean, so there, all that, and the referendum, had about a month, so you got
And I mean,
potentially
I guess
70
it's
days just to get through that.
pretty easy to protest. I don't know the exact criteria for it. I haven't but I'm off by top of my head, but I would imagine any election that gets 30 people, then eventually probably the applicant will create a protest and will get protested, and then there'll be a determination. So they may end up not getting their election if the protest is successful, and then we aren't achieving our goal really of getting the people to vote.
So I think we hit alignment on bullet 1. We pretty quickly hit alignment on bullet 3. Do we have any more? Does anybody dispute or where we landed on bullet number 3? And then it sounds like we're coming to a conclusion on bullet number 2.
Yeah, and I would still be a nod of yes. I know Trustee Corvalon's a nod of yes. Trustee Mountain, you said you were a nod of yes. Yep.
What are you nodding yes to, John?
So there actually is one additional question that I had, and to your point, Tanya, with regard to the ultimate responsibility kind of falling on our shoulders with these big decisions. There's still due process after we make a decision that town can roll back anything that we decide upon if it's found to be faulty in judgment. So is that true? Am I understanding that correctly?
Town people, but
Yeah.
not the town itself. I mean,
Right,
you mean the voters.
The voters, right? So they could recall a vote or
The referendum, yeah, the 30 people.
Yeah, just kind of like we're going through now.
That seems, I mean, logically speaking, that seems like it's a pretty fair and balanced system as it is. I can see both sides of it. So, but I do feel that we're not making authoritarian, like we're not coming in and telling the town how they're going to do business. We're debating it amongst ourselves, and we're coming across as a very small but pretty well researched slice of the democratic system. So I think we're given a responsibility to make decisions when we're all sitting here, and we're doing it as responsible citizens of the town of Nederland. And if we miss something along the way, there's a safety net. So I feel that too much throwing things out to vote can create a lot of entanglement of the system and slow things down. And I'm very much in favor of agility and moving forward quickly. but with safety nets in place. So I'm kind of leaning in the direction of not touching anything and leaving it exactly as is and seeing how quickly we can move forward, but with safety nets, to make sure that the town can be heard if we did miss something, if something didn't come out in our meetings.
But if putting it to the vote actually makes it more efficient government.
Granted, if the vote is actually much faster
Yeah,
and doesn't throw a wrench in the works,
it makes more sense.
then
Yeah.
I mean, I can see that side of it too.
Yeah.
Because this is an interesting point. I'm kind of not sure where I'm at the moment, but how fast can a vote happen? I mean, that's when
Thinking the fastest.
if it's just baked in and it's going to happen.
I think you're looking at 60 to 90 day window in order for us to get all our ducks in a row.
That's not a lot of time for someone doing annexation. And it's less than 60 plus 70.
No,
If you go through the referendum and
I agreed with Tanya as well that, there is a clear example of annexation being, passed and perhaps could have been thought through more clearly. So that's a fair point as well. So that being said, I'm in favor of the vote.
Yeah, in favor of the vote. So that would be 70 days plus 60 days, Miranda. So let's say it went through petition, 70 days plus 60 days.
versus 60
Yeah,
days.
versus 60.
I'd have to pull out the calendar, but I think we at least need, there's set amount of days to ensure that like UACAVA military voters have access to a ballot. That's really where the clock starts to hit us, but it takes us a little bit of time to pull all that data together. So I think we've kind of landed on about a 60-day turnaround time has been pretty appropriate for how quickly we could pull an election together.
So 3 nods of yes so far. So what are you thinking, Billy?
So the 3 nods so far are you, Tanya, and
John.
Tom. What are you thinking?
Not of yes. And so it would say no change on bullet 1, yes change on bullet 2, applicant pays on bullet 3.
Yeah, that would be with 4 nods. That's the case.
That's right.
For the second bullet, and I mean, and the
And
applicant
I guess
pays.
next step is to
for that.
codify it and bring it back as an action item.
Yeah, with the language.
Yeah, we can start to work on that.
Oh, Jennifer Madsen has something to say.
Well, yeah. Go ahead, Jennifer.
I do have a question about the recommendation or the suggestion that the language should include a change of zoning. And I don't know if you all recall, but that's a little bit difficult to draft into language because you are always going to have a change of zoning because you're going from county zoning and the county doesn't have the same, they don't have the same districts that you do in Nederland.
Yeah, so would it be a
Oh,
change of
density.
zoning?
Then we could just use the word
from the
density.
adjacent town property?
It will always be because you don't have, so Boulder County is not going to have mountain residential or the low density residential. They don't have that term.
Well, could we come up with a different language word that would just kind of like the spirit is that you don't put 100 houses on 3 acres in a neighborhood that's traditionally has a house per acre. So could, like a change of density or significant, I mean, it has to be really clear. It can't just be like a impact word.
Change of density to adjacent
Yeah,
existing
and
town property.
I'd want to look at the county zoning to look at, what their district categories, how they're defined, and maybe then I could come up with something. But if the goal is a density issue and an increased density,
Yeah,
then
because
I
that is
understand.
what it is. That's the goal, really. It's not so much, I don't know if we want to, you could talk about density. I guess you could also talk about business. I don't like in the idea that, you'd have a neighborhood and all of a sudden someone puts a shopping
Commercial.
center in the middle of the
Yeah.
neighborhood. I don't know how to word that, but that seems to me something that people might want to vote on. But I don't want to get in too much in the weeds, but too many examples.
Well, just know that that's not,
So
to just
zoning's
say
not
a
the right
change of
word.
zone.
Okay.
Yeah. It might be something that you guys would want to flesh out a little bit more.
Yeah, definitely, and run it by you, of course.
Okay, that sounds good.
I would like to make a couple arguments in an effort to change some nods to shakes. So, and potentially save staff time some money if we don't have a nod of 4. So basically, I feel that we don't know what the exact criteria for a vote should be. And it's really difficult for us to define that line, to draw that line around what should or should not be a vote. And the best criteria for a vote, in my opinion, is something that Billy struck on earlier, which is whether or not it's popular or controversial. And the way the existing code is written lowers the bar for anybody to come forward and say, hey, I believe this is a controversial vote and I believe this is warranted of a townwide vote. And so it's relatively easy to do that. The time difference, I heard 70 days thrown out for a referendum with a protest period, or 60 days if it's just a straight 60 to 90 days if it's just a straight vote. So
Yeah,
the
well, it was
difference-
70 plus
So the
60.
difference is relatively low. Plus, I feel that it is incumbent upon the electorate to participate and to generate and produce referendums and petitions when they feel strongly about a thing. We come here and we dedicate many hours of our lives towards being public volunteers and caring and weighing in on this stuff. And I don't think it's too much to ask of the electorate to do the same once in a while. And I would like to see more participation. I'm proud of those who petition to overturn our vote on the zoning. I think that's great public process. That's what democracy is about. It's amazing that we're able to settle our differences in such a civilized way, and we should celebrate that. And therefore, I am in favor of keeping the ordinance as it is and leaving it as a generate 30 signatures and you get a vote. If it's a super popular annexation, it probably won't. Nobody will do that. And if it's not, somebody will, whether it's 10 acres or 5 acres or 1 acre. If it's something that's unpopular, people are going to generate those 30 signatures. And I think that that is good democratic process that we have in place versus saying it's a 10 acres is that's what triggers a vote. We're coming up with arbitrary standards that I feel are popular because they are targeting one particular scary annexation that everybody knows about that could happen. And I don't think that's good democracy or good process. And I think Eric would agree with me, but he's not here to deny it. So I'll claim that.
Well, I don't think that's fair either.
It's,
It's not just the caribou or whatever.
yeah, that's not being targeted.
No,
all,
there's other
no.
things that could possibly happen.
Huh?
I mean, I'm just saying, in my imagination, it's not just Bobcat Ridge or whatever it's called. There's lots of other
Bobcat Ridge,
scenarios
okay,
on
I
our
didn't say that,
perimeter.
but I'm just
That's
saying
not-
the
and
line
that
is
will
arbitrary.
get a referendum, and that will prolong her process by an extra 70 days, probably, because it'll probably get protested. And I'm not really sure. I need to talk to Miranda and Jennifer to really understand what the protest entails. Like, how hard is it to actually reverse a referendum? Like, is the whole thing just for nothing? And maybe there won't be an election then
We're
because
about
it
to get
gets
a big
protested.
education
Yeah, we're about to find out. What you,
I understand. And if that's the case, if it's that easy to protest a referendum, then it's all for nothing, because no vote will occur. So that
Because there's going to be a finding and a determination, and it will
Yeah.
go to a vote if the protest fails.
yeah, right. And I guess I just don't understand, and this probably isn't the place for it, and I should just ask Miranda separately, what is the criteria for a protest, and et cetera, to find out like how easy it is to protest something, because then I don't, anyway.
And also to clarify, it's to go through the referendum plus the vote is 70 plus
Plus
a minimum of 60. So
60
that's
to
what-
90.
Yeah, so 60 to 90. So it's the 70 plus potentially 90 that we would be stalling that process. That's a lot.
Well, it's the 60 to 90 is there with the vote.
Already,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah,
but
I
we
mean,
get to that.
if we don't have a baked-in vote, it's 0, unless.
And if there's a referendum and no protest of the referendum, then it goes more quickly. So if the applicant doesn't want to protest the request for a vote, they can just not protest it, and it would go more quickly than 70 days theoretically.
Well, we have to have that period. We have to wait 40
You have
days.
to
You
have
have
the
to wait anyway.
It might be that the referendum comes in less than 30 days, which it did in this case, the rezoning, but the 40 days we have to allow.
All right.
And I hope some others will join me in that.
Mayor Billy.
Yeah, I'm just trying to read the sentence.
Well, I think you guys already have 4.
They do. Yeah, I haven't done it. I struggle with it because I voted for the triggered vote the first time, and I loved the process of coming to this. The second, when we came to this compromise, and one of the reasons I liked it was and maybe maybe it's this fictitious thing I have in my head about a positive annexation that everyone wants, and maybe I'm like rainbow and unicorns, but like to me that's where it's just a waste of time.
Well, and in full transparency, I loved that we came to that compromise as well. I mean, that's just awesome. When you hear all the stories of the past of BOT members not getting along and nobody ever getting anything done. Like that's just a crappy side effect sometimes of these boards. But I think we've received enough data points that I think it's okay for us to go the other direction.
I mean, I think I'll say this. Right now, you have a not a 4 unless someone changes their mind, and I think there'd be value in having it move towards action. And then we have the public really weigh in more. We'll hopefully have all 7 of us here, and I feel like it would be worth the town staff effort because it would come back as an action item, which I think would mobilize the public to come out and be heard again, and then we'll see where we vote. So I'm not going to nod on the amendment because I still wonder about those positive annexations, but I am gonna acknowledge that 4 people have, and so I think we should draw up the potential, or whatever needs to be drawn up for an action item. And then I think I'm definitely a nodder on the 3rd bullet. I think we had at least 4 for that.
Yep.
That the applicant should pay for the special election, for any election. for that
Yes.
matter.
Yep.
Great. Anything else you need from us, Miranda? Great.
I think Attorney Madsen, are you good? I think we're good.
And I guess we can talk more about the wording. Oh, wait.
Yeah.
About the wording of zoning and maybe like increase in density, compared to, wrong wording, but compared to adjacent existing town property or something like that. Or, or a change from business, commercial to residential to commercial, or vice versa.
We did have previous drafts of the annexation ordinance that talked about this. So maybe that would be a starting point, is to look at those previous drafts.
That's what I was gonna do, yeah.
That sounds great. This will give us time to all, think more about it and decide where we're gonna land with a new action item. So thanks a bunch. That being said, we're gonna move to our last item of the night, discussion item 7.2, the pump track proposal, which is gonna be presented to us by trustee Jesse Severs and ProSab member Sam Ovet. Good.
Right. How's Jesse? Are you there? Just checking in that
Yep.
everybody can still hear me.
Yep. Awesome.
Okay, cool. Jesse, do you want to take the lead a little bit on this, and then I'll jump in and add in?
Sure. So I know you guys have a lot of material in the packet, and I don't necessarily want to repeat things that are in there, but I will share with you some of the inspiration around the pump track, and then let Sam run with some other things, and then we'll answer
That'd
some
be
questions.
perfect.
Pardon me?
I was saying that's
Oh,
perfect.
perfect. Yep. And then we'll have some discussion. And initially, well, I guess before I jump into the, I wanted to address some of the comments that came in right off the bat, because I feel like they're, I'd like to acknowledge that there was some counter arguments, but maybe I'll circle back to that. Let me just say some of the history about this. So I love to bicycle, and I have since I was a little kid, and it's been one of the greatest sources of joy in my life, and still is. And currently my daughters are also enjoying bicycling. I started a bicycle collection compost program when I was living over in Old Town when I first moved here. And I've just always loved bikes. And I love seeing kids bike and people bike through town all the time. And I feel like it's one of our greatest strengths, and one of our, if we're going to have pro athletes coming out of Nederland, it's going to be bikers and skiers. I think those are sort of our two areas where we really have competitive advantage. So bicycling is, I'm a big fan. I had offered to create some bicycling infrastructure to the town before I became a BOT member, just through the capacity of my earthworking company, because I'm, just so passionate about this, and feel that our town would greatly benefit from having more investment and more resources for enjoying bicycling, and more kind of no car. I mean, it was in Peter's presentation as well. It could easily be built into our brand and some of our identity. I think it is already, and it's just hasn't fully, or it's coming to fruition now. But so I offered that, and I said I wanted somebody to do the public meetings. I would do the earthwork and make this major contribution to the town, but I wanted somebody to do the meetings and not all the public participation and campaigning and talking and convincing. So if somebody else would do that part, I would do the earthwork. And so Sam Ovet, Sam Ovet raised his hand out of the blue. I didn't know him.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah, and he said, "I will be your champion. I'll go to all the meetings and talk to all the people." And so he basically took the ball and started running with it, bringing this to the public. He gathered up a meeting with Nikki Dunn and a bunch of bicycle enthusiasts in town. And I was thinking about building trails initially, but Nikki showed us this location that we're proposing and said, "First, before we go look at trails, I want you guys to come all here to this spot at Chipeta Park and consider this to be a great spot for a pump track." And a pump track kind of came through the public process initially a couple years ago and kind of failed in glorious fashion, I believe. And it was proposed to be down at the Gercio Field area, and that was hotly debated and was ultimately shot down. So this is a location that we feel that Nikki feels has proposed that is much more suitable. She showed us this location, and she said, "This is a great spot. The sprinklers and the irrigation system are all defunct, outdated, ready for a complete overhaul. I don't see people using this area very actively. I do see kids practicing their balance bikes on the basketball court here, which is like one of our few spots where it's really safe and open spot to learn basic bicycling skills. And so I've thought that this would be a fantastic spot. I think there's enough room here." And we looked at it, there's already natural sort of grade changes and mounds and berms and things that would lend itself very well to a pump track. It just so happened that Erie Bike Park was opening up their pump track at the same time when Sam kind of rounded up this meeting, and I forget how we made the connection. I think Sam and I potentially reached out to sort of the foremost pump track building company, and they happened to be in town. So they were down in Erie, and they paid us a free visit to kind of assess the Chipeta Park area that Nikki was proposing. And so the area, which is in our presentation that's on our website, that I believe was shared with you in our AIM, is the parking lot side of the basketball court at Chipeta Park. So it's not the beautiful grassy area that is people are using and playing soccer and taking naps and flying kites. That does get a lot of active use. It's the area that is close to the parking lot. Nikki said the one stipulation was that she wanted to make sure that parks vehicles and service vehicles could always drive through there and get to the back area for servicing and taking care of the park, various amenities that we have back there. And so that obviously could be accommodated. So since then, we first went to Miranda and we said, "Hey, can Nikki just make this happen? Can we raise the money and Nikki can just do this, right? Because she's in charge of parks and she can just make this happen." And Miranda said, "No, not so fast. You have to go through the Nederland planning process." And so starting with the ProSab. And so basically, Sam and I went to the ProSab, I think probably 3 different times on 3 different months, keep trying to get the ProSab to kick it off and endorse it. And finally they made us, do our homework. And Sam came in and I came in with a lot of enthusiasm and stoke. But it was ultimately doing our homework and putting together a solid presentation that got ProSab to give us a unanimous vote of endorsement. So ProSab wants it, and then we've essentially gone to every other board since then and gotten their support as well. All the boards have been unanimous endorsements of this pump track so far, except for the DDA, which was a split vote. However, the DDA did agree to fund the initial design and engineering work up to the tune of $10,000. So
Jesse, one point there.
Just a sec, Sam. Unanimously or
no, it was a split vote
to fund it.
To fund it.
Right, split
They
vote
unanimously,
to fund, but I
yes.
believe they
They unanimously voted to support the pump track creation, but they were split on funding it.
whether or not the fund should come
Yes,
out of the
that's
DDA.
right. So that's a really good, important detail.
I'm sorry. So I spaced out. So they unanimously voted to do what?
To support the pump track, to endorse it. They want to see it happen.
And then they were split
But
on
they were split
money.
on funding it.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but they were only funding $10,000 for blueprints and engineering and basically material that we could use for fundraising. A design, and it's a design process that the American Ramp Company, that is sort of the world-renowned pump track builder for Velo Solutions, which they are sort of the primary builder for these pump tracks that get the the official stamp of the UCI, the World Bicycling Association, where we could have a Red Bull pump track race and event here if we wanted, because our pump track would qualify. So they're queued up and ready to do a design, and we have the money allocated. And really, what I need from, or what we need from the BOT is also support. Basically, a nod of 4 to move forward with this. And yeah, I could address the arguments that were submitted for why not to do it there or why not to do it at all. So be happy to address those too. And I'm also happy to pass the microphone to Sam Ovet if you'd like.
And Trustee Severs, I just want to note, I thought maybe just in case there were questions, Nikki Dunn, oh, she was on, and she probably will come back, but she's on in case there are questions for.
I'm here.
Oh, you are there. Okay, good. Oh, your hand was raised. You went to the top of my screen. Nikki's hand is raised.
I feel like it's important to note that this pump track and these biking opportunities that Jesse's talking about are noted and called for in our Prost master plan. Since 2012, the public has desired this pump track somewhere in town in the location that Jesse speaks of. Although we had a few people write in and say that they don't feel that that's the best location. Being feet on the ground and knowing what's happening in our town, it really is the ideal location due to the center the close to the skate park. So I have problems with kids on bikes at the skate park a lot, and being able to point them over to Chipeta Park to go there to play is really important. I did see one of the public comments talking about the secondary bridge. The pump track wouldn't interfere with any of the proposed locations for the secondary bridge, nor would it interfere with the location that's closer to Fisherman's Lot, that secondary bridge location that we've discussed. That trail access would still be open, that it wouldn't be affected at all by the pump track design. So any other questions for me? I am here, I'm on the line.
Thanks, Nikki. Sam, did you want to, actually, any questions for Nikki before we move to Sam? If not, Sam, did you want to say more?
Yeah, I wanted to share that was also exciting was, and I'm blanking on the exact count at this point, but we had Jesse, do you know offhand the number of signatures that we had from the community in support of it? There's 2 numbers here. 185 signatures and comments from people in the community that actually signed a Google survey petition that we can share with you, and more. There's some of it that is on there actually attached to the details of this, and that represents, I think, is it 400 or 600 total members of the community, because they put in there, the folks signing it, how many family members or household members they represented. Do you remember, Jesse, offhand?
I have the total in the spreadsheet right in front of me. I'm just looking it up.
Yeah.
It's
It's either like
488. 488.
It is. Yeah.
Sam, you might want to turn your camera off. You're a little glitchy.
We could feel the stoke though.
I'm out here fun hogging for sure in Bend, Oregon, having fun. But can you hear me now? Is that any better? Okay, great. So I know we had a few people write in, like I think it was 3 with concerns, but I just wanted to share the perspective of the community that also is extremely excited about this and wants this to happen. Is we're looking at 185 people who signed it, representing 480 people.
I
does
will
include
say, looking
kids
at this
as well.
list quickly, some of those people double counted because dad said 4 and mom said 4, and there's 4 in the family.
Oh, okay.
And I've seen.
All right, so knock off 100.
Yeah, knock off 100.
You know, to be conservative, let's say. And then we're still looking at 185 unique signatures. So let's use that number as the go-to. So we're not confusing or inflating anything. But we've got a lot of people who are excited about it. And so I just wanted to share that perspective. And then we can address some of the concerns of the other folks. And I think we should go ahead and do that now. And that way then we can essentially open it up to discussion and clarification of what we're asking for at this point in the discussion items. Jesse, do you
Yeah, so
want to
here's what we'll do,
address some of
Sam.
those?
Sam.
Yeah, go ahead.
We'll have clarifying questions now from the trustees, and then we
Perfect.
will go to public comment, and then we'll bring
Wonderful.
it back to the trustees, and we'll have you kind of weigh in for a while, but at some point, it'll be trustees only at the end. So,
Okay, sounds great.
are there any more clarifying questions?
I do have a clarifying question. So, I've been involved with ProSab setting their goals for the next year. So how does us, if whether we're in support or not, how does this affect the fact that ProSab hasn't set their goals or what they're going to prioritize over the next year yet?
Well, that's a great question. I think it's a philosophical consideration because we do have the Nederland Parks Recreation and Trails Master Plan, which was drafted and crafted in 2013. So that is outdated. And also we have a past vote of the ProSab. So basically, I think that the two are always simultaneously happening. We're always making decisions and that we can look back on and move forward with, and we can always reconsider, revisit, and evaluate our goals and objectives moving forward. So I don't think that the fact that we're planning and deliberating and plotting on our future goals should diminish the vote of the ProSab from several months ago, or the hard work that was done to create the 2013 master plan for trails.
Okay, so let me ask something more specific. Let's say, and I have more clarifying questions about what the exact ask is, but let's say, okay, cool, the board says, yeah, we support you. We support and endorse that we should have a pump track. But what if ProSab comes back and says, pump track probably isn't going to be in our top 5 for the next year? I guess what's the situation around that? Or where do you go from there?
I don't know. I mean, the ProSab already weighed in on it. So we're moving on a decision from ProSab that happened several months ago, rather than trying to anticipate what the future goals of the upcoming ProSab is going to be in the future, and then second guessing where we are today based on not knowing where their goals are going to be set at tomorrow. So does that make sense?
I think so.
Also, to go back to the PROST, which is the Nederland Parks Recreation Open Space and Trails Master Plan. Biking and bicycling if you review the data in there, and there's a lot of public surveys that have been tabulated in there and built into the plan. And biking and bicycling are in, there's almost 100 mentions of those activities, and they're always in the top 2 or 3. And because bikes and bicycle infrastructure is split between biking on soft trails, biking on hard trails, biking on a pump track, bicycling more bike trails, the survey results are skewed against biking. So if you consolidate those results into all under one category of bicycling infrastructure, bicycling is by far the most requested addition to our recreational plan, with water recreation in a close second, with a swimming pool or somehow recreating with the water. So those are our 2 things that we have today that we can go off of, is a very robust master plan for trails and recreation that, in my opinion, we should run with that until we have new goals established, which we don't today.
Okay, gotcha. And then what is the specific ask? The specific ask is just an endorsement, or are you asking for budget eventually from town?
No, and that gets us to Susan Wagner and May Gerald and the other public comments, Bonnie and Deb DeAndrea. they were concerned that we're spending a lot of money on a pump track to the tune of $500,000, that we have a lot of other things that we could spend that money on that would be very well spent. So no, we're not looking to spend public money on this. So that's has never been a consideration. Perhaps if there's a $450,000 matching grant and the town has to pitch in 50,000, we'll come to you and say, hey, can we consider pitching in 50 grand to make this happen? Then yes, but that's not what we're considering today. We don't know how to pay for this yet.
Oh, okay. That was my
Yeah.
question is what are you considering
So
for how you will pay for it?
I have a funny story if you'd like to
We
hear.
like funny stories.
I was in the BNF today picking up some groceries, doing a good contribution to the family before I came to tonight's meeting. And I was looking at the gourmet chocolate, and one of the chocolate bags jumped out at me, and then it knocked all these other ones down, and I picked them all up, and the cashier, I was right by the cash register, he came over and he started making a joke about how they'll jump out at you, if you're not careful. And I was thinking about a Far Side cartoon that I just saw yesterday where the lady was like hanging onto the parking meter in front of a candy store, and there was a torrential wind that was blowing her into the candy store. And then the cashier at the other cashier over, he came over and he said, hey, I saw this hilarious thing where he overheard, and he said, I saw this hilarious thing where these seagulls, this mama seagull, was on a YouTube short, was training its baby how to go into the grocery store and steal from the grocery store to feed its baby. It was like running in with the people and grabbing something and coming out. And that made me think of how we could raise money for this pump track. So, we're a sister city with one of the towns in the Netherlands, as we just had this recent visitors. And do you know what the name of the town is off the top of your head? But anyway, they just happened, and it's really cool. But I saw this TED Talk on this study that they did with birds in the Netherlands, and they trained crows by giving them a little nugget of food if they were able to bring back a coin. And then these crows started going around
Oh
the
my
town
God.
and gathering up. So they started gathering up and they raised a bunch of money that way.
No way.
Yeah. So I figured that could be a fundraiser. And his name was Daniel, and I said I'd give him credit in the meeting. So
Awesome.
that's one way that we could fund this thing. And and all other manner of income sources. And so that is the since we are on YouTube Live, I figured I might as well. So that is one of the counter arguments to the fact that we're not looking to spend public money on this at the moment. So the other one is the bridges. Definitely bridges are a super high priority, and the pump track location does not impede or conflict with the bridge locations at all. Two of the considerations, one is closer towards the bottom of Chapita Park, closer to the pond that was Nikki's proposal, recommendation when we did a tour. It's a great suggestion. It's town-owned property on both sides of the creek, and it would be a pedestrian bridge as suggested by Nikki, essentially, and that could be used for motor vehicles in the event of an emergency evacuation. And then the other one is crossing the Snyder's on 100 First Street, where Ron owns that lot, and then it would kick out right behind BNF, which is clear on the other side of the parking lot. Also does not impede at all. So in the event of that emergency evacuation one, Nikki's already specified that she would want to keep that open to service vehicles, so that could definitely be used in the event of emergency. And I think those are the two counter arguments that I saw, and yeah, I just felt those are worth addressing. But
Would
So-
recommend you consider a motion to extend here pretty quick before.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, well, I think we could also wrap it up super fast. Let me just give me.
I don't think we can because we have public comment
yeah.
and we got to
Okay.
talk. So we're going to need more time. If we wrap it up, that's great. But I'll make a motion to extend till 10:15 for now.
Second.
Second.
Macy?
Trustee Severs,
Yes.
Trustee Mountain,
Yes.
Trustee Sterling,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Mahold,
Yes.
Trustee Corvalon,
Yeah.
and Mayor Billy.
Yep.
Thank you.
Great. If let's just go, do we have any more clarifying questions? Because I'd like to go to public comment.
I have one real quick
Yeah,
question.
take your time.
Well, I actually have two. So Miranda, when we tallied the votes when the town vote happened, wasn't it close to 400?
It was close. Yeah, this year 400. I think the highest we ever had was like 525.
So this is 3/4 of that in terms of yes votes. So that's a pretty good town resounding yes, source support for this. So that's
Yeah, I don't know if everyone on the survey is Nederland residents, but yes, there is definitely a significant amount of support.
Or of age to vote.
that's a good point as well.
CL.
But, you know, and
But still,
surveys,
still plenty.
honestly, we're at this point where it's like benchmarking of 100 is great. Like having
Yeah.
183 people turn out to fill out their petition and provide their support is very meaningful, kind of the spectrum of public engagement.
Yep.
And this is more of maybe a philosophical question for just whoever, but bringing in another anchor to bring families to town to stay a little bit longer could possibly drive more revenue as well. So
That was in their presentation before the DDA, which we added those notes into the AIM, just really kind of talking about the economic benefit. And that was a large part of kind of how how Jesse and Sam presented it to them. And they did offer some kind of thoughts about what possible revenue is. We haven't done a kind of a deep dive into that, but that is one of the kind of the premise is that this could be an area where you want to come access the pump track and you want to do it in a beautiful scenery and not down below. This would be a great place to do so. And then you're near obviously all the shops and businesses to go grab food or whatever else you might do while your loved ones are utilizing the pump track.
Any more? Does that answer your question? Thanks. Go to public. We're going to go ahead and move to public comment. We've got folks online and folks in the room. So if you want to make a comment, you can come on up and or raise your hand online and just there'll be 3 minutes. There's a timer and just identify yourself and your relationship to town. And
So, do I need to press anything?
no, if you see a green light, you sound like you're on. Okay, press it again.
There we
Yep.
go. Excuse me. Thank you, board. I appreciate your time. My name is Matthew Clymer. I've been a resident of Nederland for about 9 years. I've been a homeowner for 8 of those years. I've been in Colorado and Boulder County for 23 years. The reason I stand before you tonight is in support of the pump track. Simply being like, I'm a single father. Okay, I have my kids every other week. I try to do everything I can with them within the town of Ned in our greater areas, from the fishing pond to all our hiking trails to, going down by the creek to just doing anything I really can do with them. Take them out to the to the grade school, play on the thing, and like a pump track would be wonderful. And I stand before you in front of like even my cousin, who's a CEO of like a pump track building company. And like I see the pictures that he sends me of his kids. He's built pump tracks within Carbondale, Basalt, Cripple Creek, and just it's a wonderful thing for our community to bring up people to our wonderful town to spend, like you all said, spend more money, like get out there, have a wonderful time, enjoy what we have to give. But even more so, just to give me as like a father, like an out to get them and where I can take their bikes down. Like we all know, like I live in Old Town right next to Billy, and we all know it's dirt. So how much time do I have to like take my kids down these like dirt roads, and like there's not much I can do with them on their bicycles. I can take them down like the bike path next to the peak to peak, but still like it's dangerous and it's downhill and it's I'd like to take them someplace safe. And the area we're proposing, like the basketball courts are great. I do it, but I never see anybody there. Every time I go there with my kids, there's nobody there. And I think that land would be best used in a place where like we can bring a wonderful area and a wonderful thing for our community to really all indulge in. And at least for me and my sake, like give me something else I can bring to my kids and have them like just go nuts and go up and down, and even for myself as well. So in that regard, I think it'd be a wonderful thing for our community. I've been here long enough and knowing like we need it. You know, we finally got NedFest back this year. You know, we need to bring it back to like where this town is and where this town has always been. It's always about who we are, because we're Nedheads, whether we like it or not. You know, and I don't like that connotation, but we are. You know, and we need to expect that and like respect it and embrace it. And like for what we can do to bring in something into this town like that is marvelous. And in that regard, like I just want to introduce you like my cousin. His name is Dave King. He's the CEO of Dirt Skull. Like I said, they've done pump track courses throughout all North America, from Canada to the US to Mexico. And I just wanted to turn it over to him so he can talk to you a little bit more about what he's done with high mountain towns and how it's not destroyed the community, how it's bringing people together, and the things that they've done.
Thanks, Matt.
So thank you all very much. I appreciate your time.
Appreciate your time, and Dave, you can have 3 minutes.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Dave King. I own Dirt Sculpt LLC. I've been building professionally since '98. Started my company in '09, and I've been traveling the world ever since, building with my own company and all sorts of other companies. But yeah, so we specialize in mountain bike trails, bike parks, paved pump tracks, dirt pump tracks. I've built the X Games since 2013, and as my own contract, and I've done a ton of Red Bull events. So we started as a professional event company and then kind of turned into more of a bike park and recreation company. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of introduce myself and just, you know, Bell Solutions is definitely a great company. You know, there are other options. You know, maybe we're more affordable based on our size. We don't have as much overhead, so we might be able to offer more square footage for the price. And, you know, I'm not trying to give you a sales pitch, but I do travel to Colorado a lot for builds. We're actually doing a project in Belmont right now at the bike park. We're building a resi jump. So it's going to be a paved roll-in to a prefab kicker and then a rolled over landing with a rubberized pad underneath so you can learn tricks.
Speak English, please.
Oh,
It's going to be a safe way to bite it, you know, to wipe out.
starting hill that's going to be paved. You roll down that lip that's pre-made, so it's not a dirt. It's like a metal lip with. You jump off of that. It's like a step up, so you can land safely on top, and then it has a rubberized like playground asphalt landing with a plastic sheeting over it, so you could like safely learn tricks or crash on it, and you won't die. Essentially.
And that's in Boulder.
That's Boulder, Vermont, Pike Park. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I'm doing a private build in Pagosa Springs for a good buddy of mine. We started last year and we're building some more now. But yeah, I just want to introduce myself and thank you.
And you've had exposure to other high altitude, like.
Yeah, I mean, we did the Basalt Bike Park back in 13, the Carbondale one in 14, and Cripple Creek. We did a BMX racetrack in 17, and now we're here. So, but yeah, I don't know if anyone has any questions or anything, but.
Yeah, would you mind stating your name again and also sharing your information with the town administrator?
Yeah.
Maybe after we'll send her an email or make sure that you guys can.
Yeah, I have cards and stuff I can give you guys as well, for sure. But yeah, I work with communities, especially like smaller communities that maybe don't have like the huge budget that is necessary for a pump track. You know, so we try to utilize some of the natural resources, like say like Public Works Department will have an excess of road millings that they need to get rid of or some extra dirt. Sometimes we use, you know, we'll try to like upset the cost with that by maybe using some of the town's resources to help get the job done with, you know, under the budget, you know, that they have. So it's kind of like what I try to work with. Like I'm passionate about it. I'm a lifelong rider, just like Jesse here. It's exactly what I do every day of my life, or either build or ride. So, and when my kids, like, it's the best thing ever.
Thanks, Dave.
Yep, thank you.
I appreciate your time for being here.
Online is Luke Miller.
Luke? Can't hear you yet. You might be muted.
I was putting my hand down. Sorry. Yes, my name's Luke Miller. We are fairly new residents in Nederland the last 2 years, but this is actually my hometown. I was born and raised here. And we have a 12-year-old son who's a student at the Nederland Middle School, Felix. We let him say a quick piece about why he would like to have a pump track.
Yeah, my name is Felix. I'm a 7th grader at Nederland, and I think me and all my 12 friends would all really appreciate a place to go hang out and have fun around in Ned. Thank you.
Thanks,
Um,
Felix.
Yeah. So, and I mean, I think that's a big one for us is, I think that the kids in especially in that kind of age bracket where they can go down after school and, provides a cool environment for them and builds a lot of community amongst the kids. And then, I think it's great for, our local businesses and stuff. You get a bunch of people hanging out there and people are going to get hungry and thirsty and, maybe people coming up from Boulder who might, ride West Mag or something, but then, they would normally just go home, but if they can come over to the pump track for a little while and then they hang out and decide to stay for dinner, I think it's a great, it's a great opportunity, food, drink, dinners, everything else. Yeah. Park some of the food trucks over there or something like that, like they've been doing at the brewery. So, yeah, I think it's also, I think, a big step in kind of the right direction of, Nederland is sort of becoming a mountain bike destination, which, I think we're already moving that direction. And I think that's really good for our town as a whole.
Thanks, Luke.
Yeah.
And thanks, Felix.
Tanya Unger.
Hey, Tanya, go ahead.
Hi, Tanya Unger, 12-year resident of Nederland in the Peak to Peak area. I love the idea of the pump track, so I don't want to be misheard here. I think the area that it's targeting is too small. Love to see it. I think you're going to need to grow it from that area very quickly.
Thanks, Tanya. Any other comments, folks online? Not seeing any hands yet. If not, we'll bring it back to the board for discussion. And I'll just go ahead and say the questions before the board are soon to be pulled up here. Oh yeah, there we go.
I do have another question.
Yeah, go ahead. Any more clarifying questions first? Let's go with those.
So going back to the location, and one of the proposals or suggestions was to put the location actually up near the rink, and wondering if Nikki can speak to that as to why, the Chipeta Park is a better option than potentially using the area around the rink where, the exposure to the tennis courts or, might also be helpful. But yeah, wanting to get your thoughts on that.
First, it's central to town, so the businesses would get more of the benefit of it being down closer to Chipeta. Up by the rink, we do plan on doing some recreation corridor type things up there, but there's no space at the rink to make that actually happen. Chipeta Park provides more equal access for all of the kids in all of the different neighborhoods, whereas if we put it up by the rink area, you're kind of excluding some of the kids from Big Springs that would be able to access Chipeta. But maybe that would be too far of a ride for them, especially if they were going down without their parents. Also, Chipeta Park also offers parking. It's already there. It's provided for us at Chipeta Park and along Lakeview Drive. To address Tanya's comment that area would be too small and it would need to grow. Well, we could look at the Big Springs Park area to be an expansion for creating more obstacle course type things for mountain bikes. And also that area, if we had the track there at Chipeta and it became too small, we could just make that a beginner course or whatever. The American Ramp Company assessed the Chipeta Park area and said that it was a great size. They actually thought it was a perfect size for our town and the amount of people that would be coming there. And really, I think Chipeta, being that central location in town, provides the most equal access to everyone and easy access for kids that were coming up. Maybe a parent would have two kids, one wanted to skate and one wanted to pump track. Well, that's perfect, right? Because the parent could actually just sit at the kids' fishing pond and watch both kids. So I think Chipeta Park actually has the best location, and I have thought about this for 8 years. So and
Yeah.
I have looked at all of the locations and thought of all the spots and places because I am not a biker. I am not, but I see the need and I see the desire for it in all these kids that are coming in trying to bicycle at the skate park or just trying to bicycle around town. And so I'm not a bicycler, but I'm a champion. So that's,
It's not too late to
is
become a
important.
bicyclist there, Nikki.
Yeah. I think I've passed that phase of my life. I'm on to different adventures. So, but I will champion the sport. I will absolutely champion whatever benefits my community and specifically the kids in my community, because those aren't just kids in my community. Those kids play at my park. That means they're my kids.
Yeah.
So whatever my kids.
Where's Big Springs Park?
Big Springs Park is the very end of Lakeview Drive, from Rodeo Court up to Big Springs Drive and along the shoreline of Barker Reservoir. And what we've seen is in that Big Springs Park area, some of the neighbors have already put in some, over the course of years, have put in little jumps and little ramps and things back in there. And the kids utilize that area quite frequently. Not all the kids know about it. It's kind of a secret, but it's an area that we're looking at kind of developing more, to creating more developed type mountain bike beginner learning stuff, for lack of a better term. So that park is already kind of being eyeballed for mountain biking for kids, beginner course, not the steep part of the park, but the kind of more gentle incline part.
Any more questions or any more? I mean, what else is the trustees on
I
here?
have another question. Knowing that Lakeview Drive could potentially be a spot for town parking, is it a possibility to expand the size of the pump track a little bit and pull into some of that Chipeta Park parking?
We wouldn't need to pull into the parking lot. The like we said, the American Ram Company said that the area that I'm already proposing is a perfect size for it already.
Okay, gotcha.
So, and I wouldn't want to jeopardize parking spaces. I know we have a need for that in our town. So wherever we could create the parking spaces, I'm not looking to take any more for parks. I am looking to keep my parks as they are. So whatever I can do to not turn Tilden into a parking lot or Angel Park into a parking lot, I don't want to do those types of things. I'd rather just keep the parks that I do have and utilize what the land that we already have access to for parking, make that parking.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so that's good to hear that it's of adequate size. It's not something that's too small, or it seems like it might just be just right or something.
Yeah.
So my only other comment would be, like, we've got such a unique and kind of cool area up here that could potentially attract folks to the pump track. Obviously, locals first. And so being able, and I don't know how safe it is, to continue to build up trees around this, but to make folks feel like they are really in the woods potentially, I think would be a cool feel and a cool draw. And so where there's opportunities, I don't know that trees or vegetation or things have been thought like that, because I know you guys are still working on the design, but making it feel like a cool locals wilderness sort of feel, I think would be awesome too.
That's cool. Nicole, one of the things that we talked about is utilizing.
Hey, just a sec, I need to make a motion to extend the meeting to 10:30. And we may not need that long, but no, 10:30. Some of us haven't talked at all.
Second.
so, thanks. Macy,
Second.
Jesse.
Jesse.
All right, trustee Sterling,
Yes.
trustee Severs,
Yes.
trustee Mountain,
Yes.
Mayor Billy.
Yes.
Trustee Corvalon
Yeah.
and Mayor Pro Tem Mahone.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
So one of the things that we talked about in this initial little tiny baby planning meeting that we had quite a while ago was utilizing some of the center areas of the pump track to be kind of tree islands, or areas that would take runoff from the rain and things like that. So to plant things in there and to utilize the natural landscape that we already have. But I love your idea, Nicole. I think that's awesome. Jesse, Sam, take notes.
On it.
What other comments do the trustees have? Do you have any more, Nicole?
No, I'm good.
I think I can clarify my ask, or our ask of the BOT right now a little bit to make a decision easier. So basically the DDA, they've already agreed and awarded $10,000 for engineering and planning. So American Ramp Company said they could get us a great plan with that budget. I don't want to go and spend that money. It's town public money if we don't have the support to get that next step, to take that next step. So even though that money's already been awarded, the ProSab would like to see it. But if this board isn't in support, I don't know that it's a good use of public money at this time. So I would really like to hear that, we all would like for Nikki and Miranda and, Sam and ProSab to engage in getting that plan created and permitted, and then we could figure out how to build it and fund it from there. Yeah.
So, I mean, for one thing, I want to hear from everyone before we just get to the question before the board. But the question before the board is, does the BOT support the development of a pump track at Chipeta Park? So is that what you're wanting to know? Yeah, no, and I think we will answer that tonight, shortly. Anyone else have anything else they want to say? Because I do.
I just want to add that with regard to giving youth more options, you divert a lot of trouble. I grew up in a part of town in Denver where we didn't have these sorts of outlets, and I grew up with a lot of at-risk youth, and the difference was pretty remarkable when I moved to an area that had better access to recreate at certain ages. I think it's critical to have more options rather than less for our kids. So I think it's great.
Anyone else? So I've got just pros and cons. I mean, I guess I've been struck I'm just going to go through the cons first. I've been struck by how many people are against this, or just say, "Oh God," I was at a bar in Boulder just a couple weeks back, and I knew these people from up here, and they didn't even know I was in town government. And the dude's talking to me, he's like, "Yes," and then finally he just somehow started talking about government, and this is the only thing he said. He goes, "All that town government cares about is a pump track. They won't even deal with the roads." And like I was just talking to myself, I'm not gonna tell him I'm the mayor, but like, why the hell does he care? He's like a young guy who rides bikes. I was like, why does he care so much about that? And how many people? I mean, you asked me to sign a petition. I decided not to, and Amy August did too. I just wanted to be clean. I didn't want to sign it, but I've been shocked by how many people, and struck by question this priority, and I continue to be kind of struck by it because it keeps coming. And it's not just the usual suspects, complaining. So this is a super like little thing about Chipeta. So sometimes people do play basketball there, and like, is there any thoughts when you design this about kids playing basketball? And I play basketball. Basketballs go bouncing and rolling away, and you're coming over this jump, and you come down on your bike on a basketball. That's gonna hurt. I mean, so these are just considerations, little things. I guess my biggest thing, like I think the whole argument about tourism is kind of a weak one because there's pump tracks in Estes Park. I've been sitting there Googling Lyons, Boulder, Broomfield, Longmont, I believe, Superior, Louisville. I think I already said that. So I don't really know that it's a tourism draw. I think that's gravy if it happens. But my only other con is that I don't like the ice rink idea because I think it's just it's up a huge hill. It's a huge, I mean, little kids will be spent halfway up the hill. They won't even get there. And then they'll have to be driven, you know, and that kind of takes away from what like Matt talks about. He can just bring his kids there from Old Town. So those are my main cons. Oh, well, and then there's the big one, price. So it's about $31 a square foot when I did the math on all those scenarios. And I guess I'm concerned that we're just talking to one company. I even feel like the plans, we need to put it out for a little bit and get, just find out what's out there. These guys might be the folks, but they're not the only folks. And so I think opening up the bidding for even just this stage and definitely for anything beyond, you know, is huge in my mind. And I think for like my pros, you know, when people complain, oh, you know, we need roads, we got all this infrastructure, got to focus on that first. I feel like this is infrastructure, like having something for people who live here to do is infrastructure. You know, it's something that is important for me, you know, me as a dad, lots of us as parents as well, you know, as well as ourselves. Like I'll probably go out there and hurt myself on it too. But so I do feel like this is an, you know, would be an infrastructure investment. I think about like options for families and, you know, the Mountain Strong program and the fact that we need better options or kids can get into trouble here. And a lot of people start bringing their kids down to Boulder and for middle school and high school because there's not enough to do. So I feel like, you know, that's where I see it as a big plus. I like Chipeta in that it's close to town and accessible. And I guess there's this big Springs Park, which sounds like something that'd be built on. I do question why we couldn't go back and at least consider talking about Guercio. This is probably, you know, maybe that's just not going to happen. But to me, there's already, you know, the people that don't like it, there is already the skate park down in that neighborhood. And, you know, I wonder if that could be a good location too. It's not quite as central, but just something to explore as we go farther. And as for money, you know, I mean, I think as we look at it, I don't really see it as so much as a tourism thing, as a investment for our locals or for the people that live here that maybe Teens Inc., you know, who runs Mountain Strong, you know, they're masters of coming up with money. Maybe they're a resource to build these kinds of things for a town. So where it's really something for, you know, because they're focused on kids from birth through, you know, out to college and beyond. So those are my thoughts. I think those. Yeah, I think it's interesting that there was a call for pump tracks back in 2013 on the master plan. So, yeah. So the question before the board is, does the BOT support the development of a pump track at Chipeta Park? And we're just looking to guidance to town staff, so it's a nod of 4.
You definitely have a nod from me.
Yeah, you got one from me too.
Me too.
Nicole, Jesse, you're not nodding. Kidding. So I am going to give a nod, but I would like to explore more than just Chipeta Park. That to me would be the big thing there. And just let me talk, Tanya. Okay. I would like to support, or I would like to at least look at other options, and then also just talk to other contractors. So I think, nonetheless, there were 6 nods.
So, yeah, we got 6 nods minus Eric. Basically,
We
Eric-
needed 4.
Yeah.
We're good.
And you need to start recruiting birds, apparently.
BNF cashier said they would help me talk to the owner and
Okay.
put a dispenser outside
Let's do it.
for feeding the crows.
We can make them.
They're gonna throw coins all over the park.
Well, we're gonna have to train them. It's not gonna.
Oh.
It's not just a slam.
I will say, don't come to the table with that as your financing plan, or you're gonna get denied big time.
You should. It'll be hilarious.
It'll be one of many.
What if they all just came back?
Come with the bird that's already trained.
So I think that's it for our action items and
Thank you,
discussion items. Thanks, everyone, and look forward to talking about this. And
Motion to adjourn.
Any other business? Yeah, thanks, Tom. I got to ask. Any other business?
Can I just a couple things, two quick things. Next meeting on the 20th, there's a town hall for public engagement from 6 to 8. So the regular board meeting will start at 8 p.m. But do encourage you to all come participate in that public engagement town hall. And then we had originally canceled the first Tuesday in July because it's the 4th of July and didn't think we all wanted to be together. But we really do need 2 meetings. So we have set 2 meetings for July 11th and July 18th. So back to back. And you should have those calendar invites, but just calendar that now.
I just want to say big thanks to all the staff for all their hard work ongoing, day over day, day in and day out. Thank you all.
Yes, thank you. Appreciate all your work tonight, everyone, and thanks a bunch. Tom, you were saying something about a motion to adjourn?
Yeah, motion to adjourn.
Second?
Ready? Mayor Billy?
Yes.
Trustee Mountain?
Yes.
Trustee Corbalon? Did she leave the meeting? Okay.
I think that's a yes.
Trustee Sterling?
Was that me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mayor Pro Tem Mahone
Yes.
and Trustee Severs.
Yes.
Thank you. This meeting is adjourned at 10:27 p.m.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.